Chapter 40-141. Ziqin felt that his understanding had taken a huge blow today. All of his confidence had been smashed into nothingness by these few punches. The reason for that was because every single punch had caused him to faint. It could be said that he had died 9 times today, and each time he had been killed by a single punch. If the people outside knew about this, who knew what they would think? After 9 deaths, Ziqin was only a few feet away from the main hall. The woman's projection stood beside him and looked at Ziqin, who had recovered once again. She smiled and asked, "How do you feel?" Ziqin stood up and said in a deep voice, "Very good, very powerful." After 9 deaths, the vitality left in each punch would also change his physical body. Therefore, compared to before, his physical body was much stronger. I really don't know how you cultivated your physical body. It's actually so weak. The woman's projection shook her head and said, "No wonder you couldn't even withstand a single punch." Ziqin was speechless. In fact, in terms of physical strength, Ziqin had been cultivating time and time again, and was much stronger than his peers. His title of being invincible in the same realm had a lot to do with his strong physical body and tenacious vitality. However, he didn't expect that after arriving here, he would be unable to withstand a single blow. "There's more in front." Ziqin looked at the door a few feet away and asked. The woman's projection said, "I'm not sure. You'll have to see for yourself." Ziqin's eyes were filled with doubt. He didn't believe her. "It's true. I really don't know what's inside. I'm only responsible for bringing you here." The woman's projection said, "At the same time, I've also tempered your body a little. Otherwise, you won't be able to enter at all. Or rather, even if you can enter, you won't be able to withstand the power inside." This made Ziqin even more curious about what was inside. At this moment, the power seed that had been shattered 9 times was swimming around his body. Ziqin carefully moved forward. Indeed, there was no danger until he reached the main hall. It was still the same. Ziqin turned around and glanced at the woman's shadow. She smiled encouragingly at Ziqin. Ziqin turned around and placed his hands on the door of the main hall. Before he could exert any force, a ray of light enveloped Ziqin. Ziqin's figure disappeared. Regardless of whether it was the first time he entered or this time, the door had never truly opened. The woman's virtual shadow looked at the disappearing Ziqin, and the smile on her face gradually disappeared. She gave a low sigh. "I never understood your intentions, but seeing him appear today, I seem to understand. It seems that you had already expected this back then. But what exactly did you leave behind back then? What can it change?" After Ziqin disappeared through the door of the main hall, he arrived at an unknown place. This place was like a passageway, and the surrounding space was filled with turbulent flows that occasionally streaked past him. Furthermore, the pressure here was extremely strong. Even though his physical body had been strengthened 9 times, he still felt a little uncomfortable. If not for the 9 deaths forged body, Ziqin's physical body would have collapsed while standing in this passageway. This space-time passageway was empty except for the turbulent flows that occasionally flashed past. Ziqin walked forward. After just a few steps, he felt the pressure on his body grow stronger, and the light of power in his body began to flicker. Ziqin stood in place and paused for a few breaths. When he felt that he could still hold on, he continued to walk forward. There was no sense of distance here. Behind and in front of him were the same, so even Ziqin was not sure whether he had moved or stayed in place. The only thing that made him feel a little relieved was that, as long as he walked, the pressure gradually grew stronger. It seemed to mean that he was not walking in place. After walking for an unknown period of time, a picture suddenly appeared in front of Ziqin. In the picture, there were many crystals. Although he could only see the crystals in the picture, and he did not know how far away they were, Ziqin had a clear feeling that they were a kind of power crystal. After refining them, they could increase one's strength. Ziqin did not know where his feeling came from, and he was very puzzled. His footsteps did not stop. The power seed in his body suddenly began to devour the power around him. The space-time power from this passageway was constantly converging towards his body. Just as the space-time power passed through Zichen's body, it also quietly strengthened Zichen's body. The pressure was constantly growing stronger, and Zichen's body was also adapting. Suddenly, another picture appeared in front of him. This picture was filled with the light of power. These were the powers that Zichen had seen before. Even for his body, they had a great effect. At this moment, these powers filled his vision. There were countless of them. This was definitely a great opportunity. Once he brought it back, the overall strength of the Holy Thunder Clan would definitely be strengthened again. Zichen stretched out his hand and reached forward as if he wanted to forcibly take this picture away. However, just like the crescent moon in the water, the image disappeared after a few ripples appeared on the surface of the water. Zichen was a little depressed. He did not understand what was going on. He continued to walk forward. Not long after, he saw a picture of a blood dragon. Its body was extremely huge, filling the whole picture. Everywhere it passed, the rich power of the blood dragon destroyed everything. Countless planets exploded, and the holy spirits in them were all turned into ashes. There was no doubt that this was an evil dragon that took pleasure in destroying living creatures. Suddenly, the picture flashed. A huge fist broke through the sky and landed on the head of the blood dragon. The blood dragon's protective power was instantly shattered. With a wail, it fell to the ground. The picture continued to move. The blood dragon broke through layers of barriers and landed on a planet. Then its body continued to fall and smashed into a mountain forest. "You beast, you still want to escape." A voice that made Zichen's soul tremble suddenly sounded. Then a big foot appeared in the picture and stepped on the blood dragon's head. The blood dragon was not dead and was struggling. The voice said again, "You've done many evil things, and your death is not to be regretted. Since this is the place you chose to be buried, then let's make up for it here." The big foot instantly pressed down, and the blood dragon's body sank into the ground. The original mountain forest turned into a huge canyon. The blood dragon was dead. Blood flowed like a river. Looking at the scene that appeared in the picture, Zichen's expression suddenly changed because he thought of the blood dragon canyon. Could it be that the resources he mined came from here? But who was that voice that touched his soul as soon as it spoke? He actually killed the blood dragon with one step. How powerful was that? At this moment, Zichen suddenly saw a person appear in the picture. When he saw that person's tolerance, Zichen's expression changed drastically. This was because it was clearly Zichen himself, standing in the air above the canyon. The picture flashed, but Zichen saw it very clearly. He stood there motionless as if he had been struck by lightning. That person was clearly himself. However, Zichen knew very well that he had never been so powerful. A thought that had been buried in his heart for many years, and even made him afraid, involuntarily surfaced. His memories of himself were seen through the thunder sky. At that time, he seemed to be immortal. After reviving again and again, he forgot everything except his name. Could it be that his previous life was that person from before? Zichen was stunned and stopped moving forward. However, this space-time channel began to move forward on its own, and Zichen saw one scene after another. He saw complete battle armors, strange cultivation techniques, and all kinds of strange things. In the end, Zichen saw a piece of land. It was only a few meters in radius, but it really existed. Zichen subconsciously took a step forward. He seemed to be moving forward in the torrent of time and stopped at a certain moment. He came to that piece of land. On this small piece of land, there was only a stone wall standing tall. The stone wall was as smooth as a mirror. Zichen walked forward, and his shadow was reflected in the stone wall. Zichen looked at his shadow, which seemed a little unfamiliar. Suddenly, ripples appeared on the stone wall in front of him. The shadow that belonged to Zichen quietly reached out and grabbed Zichen, bringing him into the stone wall. The ripples on the stone wall disappeared, and everything returned to normal. Zichen entered the stone wall and felt a strong sense of suffocation, as if someone was strangling his neck. He began to struggle with all his might. It was as if he was moving forward in the long river of time. He was aimless, and there were constantly changing scenes in front of him. Suddenly, a scene appeared in front of him, causing Zichen's expression to change. It was a canyon, and there was a river of blood in the canyon. It's the Blood Dragon Canyon. Zichen was shocked. Then he walked forward and arrived in that space. At this moment, Zichen was like a shadow standing in the void. The blood dragon below was dead, and a young Zichen was standing in the air. He looked forward, and there was a deep meaning in his bright eyes. This place is a little strange. The young Zichen smiled faintly, and then looked up at the sky. A ripple appeared in the sky, as if a strong force broke through the sky, and a light figure appeared. The light figure came in front of the young Zichen and cupped his fists. This place is really hard to find. Zichen heard a familiar voice. When he turned around and saw the figure, he cried out in surprise, "Lei Tianshi." The person who appeared next to the young Zichen was Lei Tianshi, whom Zichen knew. However, his cry seemed to have brought about a strange spatial fluctuation. The young Zichen keenly sensed the abnormality and immediately turned around. In his eyes there was a light that was like the sun and moon, dazzling and eye-catching. The space and time that covered his vision seemed to be penetrated by his gaze. After countless years, the two Zichen met and looked at each other. The pupils of the two men constricted. P.S. One more. Chapter 41-42. Zichen stood in place, motionless. It was as if he had been immobilized at this moment. A pressure from the distant past penetrated the barrier of space and time and landed on his body. He looked at his other self. If that other self could be considered as himself. Who is it? The young Zichen suddenly shouted. A rolling pressure swept over and stirred the surrounding space. The distance between the two became distant again. Someone. Lei Tianshi turned his head curiously and looked in the direction that the young Zichen was looking at. However, he saw nothing. The pressure that fell on Zichen disappeared. The light in the young Zichen's eyes also disappeared. No one noticed the change in his eyes. Even Lei Tianshi didn't see it. He saw me. Zichen couldn't be sure because the two were not in the same space and time. If he really wanted to confirm the time, it would be millions of years away. "My lord, what's wrong?" Seeing that his lord was silent, Lei Tianshi asked in confusion, "Lei Tian, what do you think of my lord's battle strength?" The young Zichen suddenly asked, "Lei Tian." The young Zichen was stunned. "Isn't it Lei Tianshi?" Lei Tian smiled and said, "My lord's battle strength is unparalleled. Who in the spiritual realm doesn't know that? Is that so?" The young Zichen lowered his head and looked at the dead blood dragon. Then he looked around and muttered, "Could it be that this is all the will of the heavens?" "My lord, what's wrong?" Lei Tian looked at the young Zichen. The young Zichen stretched out his hand and carefully looked at it. He said, "Purple Soul, Qin Technique, Thunder Force. These are the strongest powers in the spiritual realm. How can this be?" "Boss, don't scare me." Lei Tian said worriedly, "You killed the venerable blood dragon with one stomp. It should be the one feeling depressed. Boss, why are you feeling depressed? Is it because the power is too strong?" "Is my power strong?" the young Zichen asked. "Not strong? Boss, you are the true leader. If you are not strong, how can you lead the Thunder Clan?" Lei Tian asked, "Boss, what happened to you?" The young Zichen nodded and said, "In that case, I'll arrange something for you." Zichen had been looking at this scene the entire time. He saw the young Zichen suddenly take out something that gave off a dazzling light. It was so bright that Zichen couldn't open his eyes. In a daze, Zichen seemed to see a large hall. Then a devouring force appeared, and Zichen's figure disappeared from this world. Just as Zichen disappeared, the young Zichen turned his head and glanced in the direction where he had disappeared. "Boss, why did you give me the Zichen palace?" Looking at the palace in front of him, Lei Tian asked doubtfully, "Isn't this my lord's treasure?" "This isn't the complete Zichen palace. I took half of it, and it's missing the palace spirit. I'll leave it to you for now." The young Zichen said, "Don't ask me why, I have my own reasons. Also, don't tell Lady about this, lest he becomes suspicious and worried." Next, the young Zichen gave Lei Tian a few more things, then waved his hand and said, "All right, you can go." Lei Tian put away the Zichen palace and left. After Lei Tian left, the young Zichen looked around. "Since this is the will of the heavens, then I'll follow the will of the heavens. Leave some leeway for everything." The young Zichen flew forward, and at the same time his soul power surged out and covered the entire world. All the living beings in this world trembled when they sensed this powerful soul power. "Creatures of this world, listen up. I will teach you spells, and you will guard the path for me. When the next generation arrives, you will be granted freedom. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. When Zichen's consciousness returned, he found himself standing in front of the smooth stone wall. Everything that had happened before was like a dream. He shook his head a bit, then looked at his own shadow in front of him. The shadow was the same as before. There was nothing out of the ordinary. This made Zichen unable to determine whether what he saw just now was real or fake. At this moment, cracks suddenly appeared on the stone wall in front of them. In the next moment, the stone wall shattered into pieces. But they didn't collapse. Instead, as they fell, they triggered the power of space and time and flew in different directions. Zichen was a bit surprised. The small piece of land under his feet began to collapse. Zichen had no choice but to jump backwards, as if that was how he entered just now. After retreating, Zichen found himself standing in the middle of a grand hall. The space-time tunnel from before had disappeared. So many strange things had happened today that Zichen couldn't even react. "I'm finally home." A woman's voice suddenly came from next to him. At some point, she had also arrived in the grand hall. Her face was full of smiles, as if she was reminiscing about everything she saw. "What's going on?" Zichen looked at the woman's projection. She turned around and said, "Don't you know?" "How would I know? How could you not know? If you don't know, who else in the world would know?" Zichen was speechless, because he really didn't know. The woman's projection asked, "What did you get?" Zichen said, "I didn't get anything." "Impossible. If you didn't get anything, how did you get the recognition of this Zichen Hall?" "Zichen Hall? You're saying that this hall is called Zichen Hall?" Zichen's expression changed. The woman's projection rolled her eyes and said, "What else could it be? Let me see what's in here." "Huh." Zichen didn't disturb her, so he didn't know what she saw. After a while, the woman looked up and said, "There are many good things, but you can't take them away." Zichen asked, "I've already gotten the recognition, so why can't I take the things here?" The woman's projection rolled her eyes and said, "I'm the hall spirit of this Zichen Hall, but I don't have a physical body either. I thought it was because I was isolated from the hall, but now it seems that this Zichen Hall is missing half of it." "Missing half?" Zichen was stunned. It was split in two by someone, and its spirit and soul were taken away, so that's how it is. The woman said, "You and I are the same now. You can take the hall away, but you can't touch a single thing inside." Zichen's expression changed several times and said, "What if I have it?" A palm-sized palace appeared in Zichen's hand. It was the Zichen Hall that Lei Tianchi had given him. At that time, Lei Tianshi had told Zichen that the Zichen Hall was refined from the core of the Tianmu continent, and that it didn't have a spirit. He also told Zichen that if he had time, he could find a spirit for it. This is the other half. It's actually in your hands. The woman's projection's eyes suddenly blossomed with a dazzling light. Can I use it? Zichen asked. Of course. The woman immediately stretched out her hand and took the Zichen Hall. In this world, other than Zichen, she was probably the only one who could lift the Zichen Hall so easily. In the next moment, the Zichen Hall merged into the sky. Zichen didn't feel any changes, but the woman's projection in front of him had indeed turned from an illusion to a real one. She, who had turned into a real body, wore a long dress that looked like a phoenix's robe and walked forward. Little brother Zichen, I am the hall spirit, Su, and I formally greet you. I trust you have been well since we last met. She came in front of Zichen, stretched out her two slender hands and pinched Zichen's cheeks and gently shook them. Zichen wanted to break free. Su smiled and said, You were originally my little master, but unfortunately your strength is too weak. I'm too embarrassed to bow to you, afraid that you won't be able to withstand it. Zichen struggled to take a few steps back and asked, Who exactly are you? Su blinked at Zichen and explained, I'm the hall spirit Su. You're the master of the Zichen Hall, so of course you're my master. As she said that, Su was about to step forward and pinch Zichen's cheeks again. Zichen said in a deep voice, Is this your attitude towards your master? Su giggled and said, But master, you're too weak. I can't do anything about it. It wasn't easy to meet master. So Su couldn't suppress the excitement in her heart. Moreover, being able to pinch master's face had always been Su's dream. I didn't expect that my dream would come true today. Zichen was speechless. What kind of person was this? Fortunately, Su didn't keep teasing Zichen. When Zichen asked how many resources there were in the Zichen Hall, she began to calculate. After a while, the hall spirit Su said, There are quite a few resources. As for how much you can use, it depends on you. What do you mean? Zichen asked in confusion. The hall spirit, Su came in front of Zichen and pinched his cheeks again. She smiled and said, You're the master of the Zichen Hall. Naturally, it depends on your strength. If you're strong, you can completely control the Zichen Hall. If you're weak, you can only control a little. Zichen closed his eyes and began to sense the Zichen Hall. However, other than a space, he couldn't sense anything. He tried a few times, but it was still the same. Zichen told the hall spirit Su about his situation. The hall spirit Su shook her head and said, Pitiful, truly pitiful. Little brother, you're really too pitiful. The hall spirit Su clearly didn't seem to be joking. She looked at Zichen with pity. If this sentence was heard by others, they would definitely be despised. This was because Zichen had too many resources on him. Normally, he would even use soul-gathering crystals to feed his pets. His personal wealth had long surpassed the average faction. It was completely different from being pitiful. However, today, Zichen's worldview had been overturned. It had even reached the point where others felt pity for him. Palace spirit Su looked at Zichen from head to toe and said, Apart from your thunderfire force, which is not bad, everything else seems to be a mess. Zichen looked at the hall spirit Su. What? From head to toe, other than the thunderfire force, everything else is useless. Especially your physical body, it's simply too weak. I really don't know how you've lived until now. Chapter 41-43. The hall spirit Su belittled Zichen as if he was worthless. After scolding Zichen for a long time, the hall spirit Su said, Because you are weak, you don't have the authority. But don't worry, little brother. As the hall spirit, I still have some authority. You can rest assured that we will help you build the foundation of your physical body. Hearing the hall spirit Su's words, Zichen had a bad feeling for some reason. But since the hall spirit, Sue had the authority. Zichen said, "Can I use the space inside?" The hall spirit, Sue asked, "What do you want to do with the space?" Zichen said, "I want to take some people away." This was what Zichen had planned for a long time. After failing to reach an agreement with the Holy Thunder Clan, he wanted to take the others away through the Hall Zichen. The Hall Spirit Sue said, "If you want to take people away, you can take all the holy spirits in this world." Zichen felt relieved. Next, it was time to think about leaving. This was actually a very big problem, because when leaving, there would be a lot of worries and troubles. Zichen thought about it and asked the Hall Spirit Sue a few more questions. Then he had an idea. Zichen said, "Send me away first." Zichen had been in there for a long time. Everyone was waiting outside. Everyone was surprisingly patient. No one expressed that they wanted to leave. They didn't want to miss this opportunity. The previous restriction had not dissipated. The people outside were still unable to communicate with the people inside. Yu Batian had been blaming himself because he had realized it too late. As a result, Zichen had taken advantage of the loophole. But thinking about it carefully, this was not a bad thing. If Zichen could not get the opportunity, then the opportunity here would be buried and the Holy Moon Clan's efforts would be in vain. As for whether Zichen would leave with the resources, he did not think about it because it was impossible. The Holy Moon Clan's many years of planning was not as simple as just recruiting a few people. If they wanted to, they could wipe out more than 90% of the people here in an instant. When he thought of the great formation that controlled this place, Yu Batian became even more confident. No one knew what the leaders of the other forces were thinking. All of them were silent. The hall ahead was still closed, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. After an unknown period of time, ripples appeared in front of them. Zichen walked out of the ripples. The moment he appeared, the people of the Holy Moon Clan immediately stood up and walked forward. Zichen's path was blocked. What is the meaning of this? Zichen looked at the people in front of him, his eyes turning cold. Yu Batian walked forward, and the people blocking Zichen spread out to the two sides. When he was in front of Zichen, Yu Batian said, "We agreed on splitting the resources." "Split my ass," Zichen blurted out. "So you're going back on your word?" Yu Butian's smile disappeared. The other leaders also walked forward. Obviously, it was time to fight for the resources, so they naturally would not miss it. As for the others, they were just watching the show. No matter how the resources were distributed, it had nothing to do with them. Zichen pointed behind him and said, "The resources are inside. I want you to take them, but I didn't get anything." Just as Zichen was speaking, the restriction behind him disappeared. The mountain peak was connected to the people around it, and the original spectators flew over. The people of the major forces who had previously lost their qualifications all came over at this moment. The people of the Holy Thunder Clan naturally came to Zichen's side. At this moment, there was chaos all around. Zichen looked at the crowd and said, "I already told you that the resources are still inside, and I can't take them out." Of course, no one believed him. Zichen said angrily, "If you don't believe me, you can try it yourself." Just as the two sides were talking, Tasha and the others quietly came to Zichen's side, but no one cared about them at this moment. The people who had previously lost their qualifications also had the idea of trying their luck at this moment. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the hall behind them suddenly disappeared. Everyone was stunned, and they were somewhat at a loss. Just as they were in a daze, Zichen suddenly disappeared as well. At the same time, all the people of the Holy Thunder Clan and the Lost Clan around Zichen also disappeared. "Oh no, ***. Yu Batian was the first to react and shouted angrily, "Find him!" Zichen appeared in the territory where Tasha was. Just as he appeared, Tasha also appeared. She immediately transmitted her voice. "Everyone gather and leave!" Zichen waved his hand, and the Zichen Hall appeared in the air and expanded. At the same time, the power of thunder flew out of the Zichen hall and into the sky. The sky was attacked indiscriminately. At this moment, in the secret room, the Holy Moon clan members who were monitoring everything did not have time to react before the monitoring stopped working. Everyone was taken aback. Zichen looked up at the sky and smiled slightly. He and Tasha had known each other for a long time. Tasha's concealment skills had left a deep impression on Zichen. Later, Tasha appeared and sneaked an attack on Zichen, but that was not Tasha's original intention. During the battle, the two used their thoughts to communicate, and at the same time, they worked together to stimulate the energy attack. That was the restriction controlled by the Holy Moon clan. Although it was only temporary, it was still enough for the two to discuss the restriction for a short period of time. In other words, the last time Tasha took the initiative to appear, it was to remind Zichen that the Holy Moon clan had various means of controlling this area. Therefore, when Zichen moved forward, he would deliberately whisper a few words and then bury a backup plan somewhere. This was to test the waters, because Zichen was not sure whether Tasha's words were true or false. However, when he came in the second time, he found that almost all the areas with opportunities had been occupied. Only then did he believe Tasha's words. After knowing that the Holy Moon clan was monitoring all of this, Zichen was relieved. During this period, he even gave the Holy Moon clan some options. But in order to keep this secret and compete for the last opportunity, they kept it a secret. With Tasha's order, the Lost Clan, who had already prepared everything, appeared one after another and gathered here. However, they did not leave immediately. Instead, they flew toward the periphery of Zichen Hall. Then, these Lost Clan members launched an indiscriminate attack toward the sky. The restriction, which had already lost its perception, was suddenly attacked, and its range was still expanding. During this period, everyone's attacks did not stop. The other Lost Clan members came forward one after another and flew toward Zichen Hall in the sky according to Tasha's guidance. The smile on Zichen's face had disappeared at some point, and he became dignified again. Even if the Lost Clan had been prepared, packed up everything, and could leave at any time, there were too many people. It would still take some time for them to teleport, so they had to hurry. If they were caught off guard, then the Holy Moon clan would definitely respond as quickly as possible. In fact, there was no need to be so hasty, but Zichen had obtained the greatest opportunity here. Under such circumstances, the Holy Moon clan, who had been waiting patiently, would definitely go all out. He glanced at Tasha, who was not far away. Tasha noticed Zichen's gaze and nodded heavily. Be on guard. Fight to the death. Protect. Tasha decisively conveyed 3 messages to be on guard against the appearance of other people around. Once outsiders appeared, they would fight to the death to protect their family. Outside the restriction that was under attack, many light spots appeared in the sky. These light spots fell from the sky and turned into figures. They were the people of the Holy Moon clan. They responded in time, and the Holy Spirits who had been ready rushed over. A great battle was about to break out. During this period, those women and children of lower realms who needed protection the most were constantly flying toward the sky. However, their speed was not as fast as expected. Zichen was a little anxious. At this moment, the voice of the hall spirit, Su, was heard. Zichen said loudly, "Everyone give up resistance. I will lure you away." As soon as his voice fell, he did not care whether the others would obey or not. The hall began to emit light, and streams of power fell from the sky, enveloping the people running below. The next moment, one figure after another disappeared. They entered Zichen's hall. Because they had been told beforehand, the lost all stayed together and no one was left behind. After those people left, Zichen shouted, "Don't resist. Let's leave quickly." During this time, there was a flash of brilliance beside Zichen, and Xiaolei appeared. However, the moment he appeared, he quickly left. In the hall, the the suction force spread and fell on the bodies of the lost who were fighting. Then the suction force appeared, and one figure after another disappeared. Even though Zichen had reacted quickly, in that short period of time, dozens of powerful Holy Spirits had died. Zichen glanced at the leaders of the Sacred Moon Clan who were charging forward, and a sacred talisman appeared in his hand. "Everyone, we will meet again someday." Zichen also had a transmission talisman in his hand, which was personally refined by Xiaolei. After activating it, Zichen disappeared. Then, Zichen appeared above a mineral vein. Just as Zichen appeared, many sacred spirits around the mineral vein launched an attack toward the sky. This was to stop the restriction of the Sacred Moon Clan. Xiaolei, who had been one step ahead of them, disappeared again. These attacks fell on the dome of the sky, causing the restriction to be stopped for a moment. During this moment, Zichen used the transmission talisman to disappear. The second time he appeared, Zichen came to the Blood Dragon Canyon. When he appeared, Xiaolei had already set up the transmission formation to leave. Outside the canyon, many sacred spirits attacked the sky, causing the Sacred Moon Clan's formation to lose its effect once again. Zichen walked into the transmission formation, cupped his fists at Xiaolei, and then looked up at the sky. "Everyone, I, Zichen, will take my leave first." Zichen left the lost world and returned to the sacred spirit realm. After his figure appeared, he did not use the core token to teleport away. Instead, he went to find the sacred sage, expressing his urgency to return immediately. Sacred Sage Lei Di was a little puzzled, but he obviously respected Zichen's opinion. The spirit ancestor led Zichen in the direction of the Holy Thunder Clan. With the sacred sage escorting him along the way, it was naturally smooth. Chapter 41-44. Chaos! Everything was in chaos. Originally, when he saw Zichen suddenly disappear, Yu Batian was still very confident because they could see any place in the world in an instant and get everyone to support them immediately. But what he didn't expect was that just a moment later, he received news that Zichen had fled the Lost World with all the native clan members. For a time, the Holy Moon Clan was furious. For the last opportunity, they had made a lot of preparations and sacrifices. How could they let Zichen take away the resources alone? But Zichen had already left. Although the various resources of the Holy Thunder Clan were still there, once they made a move at this moment, it would be a great taboo. The Holy Moon Clan was anxious, while the others were confused and didn't know what had happened. Damn it! A bunch of rascals who only care about immediate benefits have ruined our plan. Yu Batian was anxious. Zichen could make trouble in advance because he knew about the prohibition of the Holy Moon Clan, so the people of the Holy Moon Clan were unable to support them immediately. This made him suspect that it had something to do with those people snatching the resources marked by Zichen last time. Zichen, the leader, had left the Lost World, so everything that followed was taken care of by Xiaolei and the other core extremes. During this period, Zichen issued a final order to guard their respective mineral veins at all costs. Once the mineral veins were lost, the managers would be held accountable. The core extremes who clearly felt the abnormality immediately took people out and personally guarded the entrance of the mineral veins. At this time, the people of the Holy Moon Clan had already descended from the sky and were heading towards the mineral veins. After Zichen disappeared, the Holy Moon Clan took this action and surrounded all the mineral veins of the Holy Thunder Clan in a moment. This was the efficiency of the Holy Moon Clan. It was a pity that Zichen, the most important existence, had already returned. The Lost World was in chaos, and the Moonstar was also not calm. As soon as Zichen left, the aura of a holy sage emerged and chased in the direction of Zichen. Lei Di, who had been guarding this place for several years and had not left, disappeared. The next moment, he stopped the holy sage from the Holy Moon Clan. What does the Holy Moon Clan mean by this? Lei Di looked at the holy venerate in front of him. At the same time, the bloodline ancestor, who was still waiting below, said, "Your Holy Moon clan is so shameless. If you can't catch up with Yiling, won't it be even more humiliating?" The second Holy Venerate appeared out of nowhere. The bloodline ancestor looked up at the sky like a child. "Oh, there's really someone who is shameless? Then go ahead and chase after them. I will spread your deeds and see how the Holy Moon clan treats their allies. It seems that the alliance of the 4 great sacred clans is nothing in your eyes. You can let go of it at any time in the face of small benefits." "Yimai, what do you mean?" The third Saint Venerable appeared and stared coldly at the Yi vein below. The bloodline ancestor sneered and said, "Can't you understand such a simple literal meaning? Do you want me to give you the route that Yi Ling took when she left? Maybe you can catch up with her?" At this time, Lei Di said, "Zi Chen has already told me what happened in the Lost World. If you insist on breaking the rules, then don't blame us for being impolite. If you think that I, Lei Di, am speaking lightly, then I will go find Lei Jinka. I believe that he usually doesn't care about other things, but this matter is obviously trampling on the Holy Thunder clan's face. He will also take care of it." The expressions of the 3 Holy Venerates changed. Lei Jinka was currently recognized as the number 1 Holy Venerate in the Saint Spirit realm. Not only had he lived for a long time, but he was also the strongest. The 3 Holy Venerates looked at each other and then retreated. As Yimai said, even if they had chased after Yiling before, they might not have been able to catch up with her. Now that they had been delayed for a while, it was almost difficult to catch up with Yiling. After all, when they received the news, Yiling had already left. The spirit ancestor took Zi Chen directly to the Tianmu continent and returned to his home. At this moment, Zi Chen finally felt relieved. To be honest, other than the Zi Chen Palace, he did not obtain any other opportunities this time. That was because he did not have the authority to know what he had obtained. Hall Spirit Su said that there were many good things, but Zi Chen did not see any of them. "Let's go." After the spirit ancestor left Zi Chen here, he turned around and left. Zi Chen thanked the spirit ancestor apologetically and did not have any intention of keeping him. What he was going to do next was against the wishes of the Holy Thunder clan, so the spirit ancestor had to leave, even if she had already approved of this matter. Zi Chen used the world's laws to block the perception of heaven and earth. Then Zi Chen went to the other side of the world and took out the Zi Chen Palace. He first asked Tasha to come out. When Tasha saw Zi Chen's world, she said in shock, "So fast!" The last time they came back, it took a long time. Zi Chen explained. Knowing that it was the sacred master who helped, Tasha nodded and then called out some names, indicating that they should come out as well. Dozens of people came out one after another. When they saw Zi Chen's world, the first thing they felt was shock, especially when they knew that Zi Chen had obtained the last opportunity, which could be considered to have lifted everyone's curse. They were all speechless. Thinking about it, at this point, what could they do even if they had any objections? They could not go back. Therefore, they were very serious in looking for their own place to live in Zi Chen's world. However, this forest ocean world seemed to be the same. It seemed that there were not many places to choose from, and there were many of them. Some places looked very suitable for living, but the places were too small. Zi Chen saw everyone's hesitation and said with a smile, "There are many of you, so you don't have to live in one place. What kind of environment do you need? Just tell me. For example, a leisurely place with mountains and water." Zi Chen pointed below with his finger. They saw a land covered by a sea of trees, and a growing mountain peak appeared. The mountain peak rose from the ground, and a waterfall fell down, forming a new river. Everyone was stunned. Obviously, they did not expect it to be like this. Zi Chen moved his mind again, and everything returned to normal. The river that appeared before disappeared into the ground again. Since they could choose at will, everyone had no worries. Tasha simply asked and directly asked for 3 places to live. That was 3 cities. Zichen nodded and said, "Well, I will help you set up a transmission array so that you can easily communicate with each other." Zichan moved his mind again and gave a few instructions to Jono. The sea of trees below began to disappear, and a huge open area appeared. When the area was comparable to that of a city, trees began to grow from the ground, turning into tree houses one after another. All the tree houses were neatly arranged, and there were streets in between. There were even some storefronts that could be used as shops on the 2 floors of the streets. Jono was very skilled in opening up cities. However, in the eyes of Tasha and the others, this was simply a huge miracle. The 3 cities were not exactly the same, and there were obvious differences between them, but they were all neatly arranged and orderly. Chapter 41-45. They were very satisfied with their new place of residence because it was simply amazing. In the blink of an eye, 3 solid cities appeared. Moreover, Zichen made it clear that these 3 cities would be managed by themselves and Zichen would not intervene. Next, it was time for the others to appear. In front of everyone, Zichen took out the Zichen Palace Hall and then enlarged it. One figure after another descended from the sky. During this period, Zichen arranged them into the 3 cities according to the aura circulating around them. Next, they had to adapt to their new life. After everyone was settled, Zichen asked, "Do you want to bring some more exotic beasts out?" Tasha glanced at Zichen and said, "Let's forget it." In fact, she also wanted to bring some with her, but she had left in a hurry. Moreover, she also knew the means of the Holy Moon clan. If Zichen entered the lost world again, it would be difficult for him to come out again. Because they were fully prepared, the native clan had taken away almost all the resources that could be taken away, so there was no need to worry too much for the time being. After making arrangements for the native clan, Zichen returned to his residence. He did not remove the restriction because, judging from the current situation, it was not easy for the native clan to appear for the time being. After returning to his residence, Zichen poured himself a cup of tea and began to think about the lost world. At present, apart from the complete Zichen Palace Hall, Zichen had not obtained any rewards, so everything would have to wait until after the matter was over. Now he did not dare to enter the lost world, so the protection of those resources was handed over to many core disciples. As for the statistics of the resources, it all depended on Grace's Layu. Not long after, Lina came to Zichen's residence. Looking at Zichen, who was leisurely drinking tea, she said in surprise, "You, the great leader, are so leisurely." She sat opposite Zichen and looked at him with a smile. "I will always be so leisurely in the future." Zichen poured a cup of tea for Lina, deliberately not looking at the spectacular scene in front of her. Lina leaned forward and leaned against the tree table. She smiled and said, "Oh, so the matter in that world is over." Zichen gave a brief summary of the situation. After Lina heard this, she sighed and said, "In that case, the Holy Moon clan hates you to death. If you go to the lost world again, I guarantee that you won't even have a complete corpse." "That's right, I won't go there again. It's just that I'm still a little worried that those guys will go crazy and attack those mineral veins." Zichen looked straight ahead and said, "According to their methods, if they use the restriction, they will take away all the mineral veins in an instant. Moreover, the Holy Thunder clan will suffer heavy losses because of this. You think too much." Seeing that Zichen had no reaction, Lina sat back down and said, "It's true that the Holy Moon clan is angry, but they won't be so bold. After all, they are allies. Occasional competition is fine, but no one dares to compete with the danger of 2 great forces going to war." Lina looked at Zichen with a gradually changed expression. Zichen touched his cheek and said, "What's wrong? Is it red?" Lina didn't understand Zichen's meaning and said, "They don't dare to do anything to the Holy Thunder clan, but they dare to target you. I believe that even if you are living a comfortable life, You will be very uncomfortable in your heart. Zichen said, Who cares? As long as I'm comfortable, it's fine. Hee, I'll just lie here and wait for the harvest. Zichen's comfortable life only lasted for 3 days. In the short span of 3 days, Zichen's deeds had been deliberately spread throughout the entire Saint Spirit realm. He colluded with the Lost Clan and framed his allies. He broke his promise and violated the agreement between the allies. He snatched everyone's harvest with despicable means and fled to the Holy Thunder Clan like a mouse. Together with all the other crimes, he was unrighteous, unloyal, and unfilial. It's really shameless. At that time, Zichen took advantage of the fact that everyone was seriously injured in the battle with the Lost Clan to sneak attack the leaders of the major forces. He colluded with the Lost Clan and snatched the last great opportunity. You don't believe me? That was witnessed by the child of my friend's third aunt and the nephew of my uncle's wife. He said at that time that as a member of the Holy Thunder Clan, they all felt ashamed for Zichen, because even if he had a little sense of shame, he wouldn't do such a thing. Sigh, not to mention them, even I feel ashamed. The dignified Holy Thunder Clan, which enjoys so much honor in the Holy Spirit domain, was ruined by Zichen. For a mere resource, he didn't care about his own face and even brought shame to the Holy Thunder Clan. How shameful! If it were me, I would rather give up these resources than bring shame to the Holy Thunder Clan. Isn't that so? I heard that in order to get resources for himself, he even attacked the Lezhang family, and it was a sneak attack. That guy who brought shame to the Holy Thunder Clan seems to only know how to launch sneak attacks. Shameless, he's too shameless. This kind of news first spread to the periphery, then to the core disciples' residences, and slowly spread to the Tianwu continent. Zhou Lina was no longer surprised by this. Zichen had already obtained great benefits. Others couldn't do anything to him. So why couldn't they disgust him? Zichen's skin was also not ordinary. The more the matter blew up, the safer everyone in the lost world would be. As for going out to explain, that would not work, because those people were clearly deliberately framing him. Their goal was to embarrass Zichen, so why would they listen to his explanation? If he went out like this, those people would only succeed. However, the story they fabricated was too vile, so there was a need to counterattack with public opinion. Zhou Lina could arrange this. As long as someone went out to tell the truth, it would be enough to let the bystander see it. As for whether people believed it or not, it was unnecessary because there would be no interaction between the two sides. The bystanders would always be bystanders. They were just there to join in the fun. When the heat died down, they would naturally disperse. No one would really care whether you were a good person or a bad person. Another 3 days passed, and an edict came from the core city. It said that someone had sued Zichen for disregarding the Holy Thunder Clan's interests in the Lost World and killing his own clan members. Zichen went to the core city because the edict was issued by the city lord. As for who had sued, Zichen naturally knew. Recently, those people from the Holy Thunder Clan had been patting their chests, bitterly expressing their disdain for those who were of the same clan as Zichen. Almost all of them were from that clan. Zichen went to the core city and met the city lord. In fact, both sides were well aware, so the city lord did not say much. He only asked about Zichen's recent mood and health. It was mostly idle talk. He drank a few cups of tea here and then left. He went to the sacred talisman palace to look for Fu Lao, because those who had gone to the sacred talisman realm were probably about to return. Chapter 41-46. Seeing Zichen's arrival, Fu Lao said with a smile, "What's the matter? Are you out to relax?" Obviously, he also knew about Zichen's current situation. Zichen sighed and said, "The city lord is so ostentatious. Since he invited me for tea, I had no choice but to come." Fu Lao chuckled. "It sounds like you're still angry, but the pressure from above is too great, so you still have to drink." Zichen understood what Fu Lao meant, but he did not blame the city lord for upholding justice for him. He was just complaining. Sometimes, what everyone wanted was not justice. At the very least, the rumor mongers did not want justice, because there was no justice at all. Fu Lao said, "You came at the right time. I sensed a change in another world. Those people seem to be returning." Zichen asked, "Has Fu Lao arranged a place to receive them?" "It's already prepared. We're just waiting for the sacred talisman masters to arrive." After discussing some details with Fu Lao, Zichen went to Lei Yu's place. A portion of the resources in the Lost World had been transported back to the core city, so Zichen, as the leader, could get some remuneration in advance. There was a lot of discussion about Zichen in the outside world, and all kinds of rumors and slanders were extremely unpleasant. However, everyone in Lei Yu's place was very polite and respectful to Zichen, because Zichen had made a great discovery in the Lost World. Those who were transferred over were all rewarded handsomely. After he made his request, no one delayed, and Zichen soon left with the resources. What happened in the Lost World that day, including some details, had been transmitted back. After the major factions learned about everything, their mentality changed. The Sacred Moon clan could summon people at will, so they were obviously fully prepared. As a result, the matter of the resources being divided equally was a joke. The major factions even thought of an excuse for the Sacred Moon clan. For example, the resources were still being developed, and there was no statistics for the time being, so they had to wait for a few days. This wait naturally lasted for days and months. Therefore, when they saw that Zichen had even taken away the palace, not only were they not enraged, they even laughed. The Holy Moon clan's thorough preparations had failed, and this loss was not small. As a result, their overall harvest would be greatly reduced. At the same time, there was also some information about Zichen. After reading the contents, they were all delighted. This Zichen was too unlucky. Every time there was news about him, he would either be hunted down or be unrighteous and ashamed to be associated with him. He had obviously benefited greatly from the Holy Thunder clan, but now he was being targeted by his own clan members. "We're just here to watch the show anyway. Let's add fuel to the fire and make this matter more lively." After reading the news, almost all the major forces had the same attitude. With their deliberate promotion, it would be hard for Zichen not to become famous. Unrighteous, unrighteous, unloyal, unfilial, all kinds of unpleasant words, as well as the erroneous news, made Zichen almost an eternal evil. It seemed that since the birth of this world, there had never been such a vicious person in the world. Occasionally, there would be some voices speaking up for Zichen, but they would be quickly drowned out. In the end, there was a unified voice that if Zichen was really innocent, then he should go to the Lost World to confront everyone. Zichen was not stupid, so of course he would not go. However, he did not expect that the news would spread so quickly. Almost every corner of the Holy Spirit realm. Perhaps no one knew Zichen, but they all knew that there was such a despicable and shameless eternal evil in the world. Bulsh *T. They're all F King Bulsh *T. Others may not know what kind of person Zichen is. But how could I not know? A monk in a kasaya said angrily in the main hall. This was a Buddhist hall, and all the people present were holy spirits of the Buddhist domain. Good and evil, speak with moderation. On the last praying mat, Monk Xingjue, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes. The other holy spirits were still resting with their eyes closed, as if they did not hear the monk's words. "You've all heard it. What is this? According to the news, even if Zichen dies a few hundred times, it won't be enough." The monk said angrily, "But I've lived and died with Zichen for many years. How could I not know what kind of person he is? It's all because of those shitty fellows. They don't have the ability to fight for it in front of everyone, so they do these disgusting things behind our backs. Xingjue, you've also seen Zichen, so tell me, is Zichen such a person?" The reason why he called Xingjue by his name was that after coming to the Buddhist domain, the Buddhist Lord personally met the monk and accepted him as a disciple. Amit Ba, According to this poor monk's impression of Benefactor Zichin, Benefactor Zichin is very kind. Monk Xingjue put his palms together. If you don't care about this matter, then I'll do it myself. The monk said, as master's disciple, I'll clarify this matter. The other holy spirits of the Buddhist domain opened their eyes and exchanged glances. On the same day, a piece of news came from the Buddhist domain, which almost never paid attention to worldly affairs. Everyone in the Buddhist domain believed in Zichen's character and did not agree with the rumors. The Buddhist domain had a very high reputation in the saint spirit realm, and had always been fighting against the demons, so it was deeply respected by all factions. Who would have thought that the Buddhist domain, which had never participated in the outside world, would actually speak up for Zichen at this time? Almost at the same time, Heavenly Evolution Peak also spoke up. It was a faction even more mysterious than the Buddhist domain, and it was said that each of them was skilled in deducing the heavenly Tao. The Sword domain dares to guarantee with our dignity that there is absolutely no problem with Zichen's character. The Sword domain also spoke up for Zichen. The Xingma domain can also vouch for Zichen. The Xingma domain can also vouch for Zichen. The Xingma domain believes in Zichen's character. In almost a day, all the major factions spoke up for Zichen at the same time, all expressing their belief in Zichen's character. This caused an uproar in the Saint Spirit realm. Now, even the Holy Thunder clan itself had many factions that were ashamed to be associated with Zichen. Why were the major factions so far away willing to speak up for Zichen? Not long after, the 5 Elements aristocratic families spoke up for Zichen. Although we have had some disagreements with Zichen, the Holy Glory clan still believes in Zichen's character. The same goes for the Holy Star clan. Then, 2 more holy clans spoke up. This shocked many people. How could this be? It was just a mere Zichen. What capabilities did he have to make all the major forces express their stance on his behalf? But what puzzled people was that many outside factions had spoken up for Zichen, but the Holy Thunder clan had not responded for a long time. At the same time, the Holy Moon clan was also extremely quiet. After Zichen heard the news, he laughed happily. He was not happy that someone had spoken up for him, but that his friends had finally grown up over the years and had a certain amount of weight among the various clans. Otherwise, who would speak up for him? It seems that you have all grown up very quickly. Zichen was very happy and gratified. He missed his friends a little. When this matter was over, should he go and see them? After all, he had not seen them for a long time. The Holy Thunder clan still did not speak up for Zichen, but the major factions of the various clans had already spoken up, such as the Jela clan and other factions. In the end, the city lord of the core city finally made a statement. The accusations against Zichen were all made out of nothing, and a group of people who deliberately spread rumors were even arrested. In this trip to the Lost World, Chief Zichen should be credited with the greatest merit. In this way, the Holy Moon clan had to say something even if they did not want to. Even if their preparations were in vain, even if they hated Zichen to death, they had to say a few words. The farce was over. Chapter 40, 147. When Zichen heard the news and arrived, he happened to see everyone in the Sacred Talisman Palace saluting to the front. The Sacred Talisman Palace's palace master, Li Haoqing, had returned. All the Sacred Talisman Masters were very excited. They had heard from Zichen that the palace master would return, so they were looking forward to it. The Sacred Talisman Palace that had been suppressed by the Leijing family for many years would be reborn today. Taking a look at the current Lightning Divine Palace, he nodded his head as though he was rather satisfied with it. Behind him was a group of Sacred Talisman Masters who had returned. However, with Li Haoqing around and the aura of a Sacred Master, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Zichen also cupped his fists and bowed to Li Haoqing. Li Haoqing also saw Zichen and smiled. "You're lucky." Zichen didn't understand, but after looking around he understood. A person walked out from behind Li Haoqing. It was a beautiful woman in green, with a sly smile on her face. It was Qing Yi. "Why are you here?" Chen was surprised, but more than that, he was pleasantly surprised. "I opened the passage, so of course I have to come and take a look." Qing Yi walked forward and pointed at Chen. "You're the one who's going to be my tour guide. I want to see this place." Seeing Chen standing there, Qing Yi said unhappily, "Why are you still standing there? Let's go." Chen glanced at Li Haoqing, who waved his hand. "Let's go." Chen left with Qing Yi. The core city was a secret, so Chen naturally wouldn't bring her around. After leaving the sacred Talisman Palace, Chen said, "I'll bring you to my world. I don't have enough authority here." "All right." Qing Yi nodded. Chen asked, "Why are you suddenly here? Is there something you need?" Qing Yi said, "I'm here to see this world. After all, this is the main world, and there are countless living beings here." "So you're planning to build an eternal entrance?" Chen's eyes lit up. "Sort of." Chen brought Qing Yi to a transportation formation. After several teleportations, they returned to the martial heaven continent. Chen suddenly became very enthusiastic, patiently explaining his world to Qing Yi. Noticing the change in Chen's mood, Qing Yi tilted her head and said, "You seem to be a little too enthusiastic." Chen didn't hide it and smiled. "Of course, you're my big money bag now. If I serve you well, I'll have another big deal in my world in the future." The corners of Qing Yi's mouth curled up. Chen started to bring Qing Yi to tour his own world. Qing Yi was very surprised. She didn't expect Chen to have such a world. During this time, Chen didn't introduce the place where the lost race lived. However, with Qing Yi's keen perception, she naturally knew this and asked the reason. Chen did not hide anything and told him the truth. "Seems like your world is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers." Qing Yi smiled faintly. "How is it? What do you think of my previous proposal?" asked Chen immediately. If they really opened a channel from Chen's world, then to Chen's martial heaven continent, it would represent an endless stream of resources. Its value would far surpass mine. "Not much." Qing Yi continued, "This isn't a small matter. I can't make the decision on my own." "Of course. Go back and discuss it. I'm willing to provide a portion of the profits," said Chen. "Who cares about your profits?" Qing Yi rolled her eyes at Chen. "I really can't make the decision on my own. There's also the soul-devouring race and the sea race. The three powers need to sit together and discuss this." Chen wasn't surprised by this. The laws of this world had become complete, and there was no need for them to fight to the death. They could just cultivate together in this world. However, don't get your hopes up. Before coming here, your sacred sovereigns also had this intention. However, it's hard to say where the entrance to the eternal world will be located. Chen nodded. This matter was related to huge benefits. He naturally had to be cautious. Qing Yi wasn't in a hurry to leave. Chen was also very leisurely. He brought Qing Yi around to play and eat some delicacies unique to the Saint Spirit world. The heated discussion about Chen had gradually dissipated. A new hot topic appeared, and that was that the Saint Talisman Masters who entered the Holy Talisman realm had all returned. Not only the Holy Thunder Clan, but also the Saint Talisman Masters who entered the Holy Talisman realm by chance many years ago. They all had soul weapons with them. They were extremely valuable and attracted the attention of various powers. At the same time, there was another piece of news. The Holy Thunder Clan seemed to have the ability to open a complete channel to the Holy Talisman realm. A few days later, Qing Yi had to go back to pass on the message. Chen sent her to the Holy Talisman Palace. It was a temporary transmission array. Before leaving, Qing Yi chatted with Li Haoqing about some matters. On the same day, Li Haoqing asked someone to pass on a message to Ziqin. The two of them met in a restaurant in the core city. This restaurant was opened by a core disciple. It was said that he had some connections with the city lord. After all, in the core city, those who lived there were mostly core disciples. Every inch of land was worth an inch of gold. It was impossible to open a restaurant here without some background. Li Haoqing casually sat by the window. When he saw Ziqin enter, he waved his hand at him. Ziqin came forward and bowed to Li Haoqing. "You little brat, where do you have so many formalities? Hurry up and sit." Back in that world, Li Haoqing was Ziqin's grandfather for many years. The two of them had a pretty good relationship. It was just that Ziqin was still very nervous when his grandfather suddenly became a sage venerate, because at the start he wasn't so respectful to his grandfather. That last Qing is not bad. Just as Ziqin sat down, Li Haoqing smiled and said, Ziqin was a little restless. He recalled that back in that world his grandfather left his only asset, the cave, to him and Qingyi. He hoped that the two of them could carry on the family line. Unfortunately, his wish was never fulfilled. Li Haoqing knocked on the empty wine cup. Ziqin understood and immediately filled it up. "You are really amazing. You can cause a commotion wherever you go. I just came back for a few days and I heard a lot about you. There were both good and bad things about you." Li Haoqing sized up Ziqin and asked, "Do you want to know if there are more bad things or good things?" Ziqin shook his head. "I don't want to know." Li Haoqing asked, "Then what do you want to know?" "I want to know what the sage venerate thinks about the holy talisman realm." Ziqin replied honestly. Li Haoqing smiled. "Why? I called you here today to talk about something. Can't I treat you to a bowl of wine? I can drink wine any time, but the holy talisman realm is a big matter." Ziqin continued, "I want to know what the sage venerate thinks. Do you think the Holy Thunder Clan will be willing to hand over such an important place to you?" Chapter 41-48. Ziqin knew very well that controlling the entrance to the Holy Talisman Realm was equivalent to controlling the lifeline of all the Holy Talisman Masters in the entire Holy Spirit Realm. Not only Holy Talisman Masters, but other Holy Spirits could also enter to train. The value of this was much higher than discovering a mineral vein. Therefore, the Holy Venerate's question was not without reason. Ziqin fell into deep thought. Li Haoqing was not in a hurry. He drank slowly and quietly waited for Ziqin's reply. After a while, Ziqin looked up at Li Haoqing and said, "This is a matter of great importance. Under normal circumstances, it is completely impossible. However, the current situation is not 100% impossible." "Oh, then tell me where it might be." Li Haoqing poured himself a glass of wine and asked with a smile, "The core city is the core of the Holy Thunder Clan. This time, they can only use it temporarily. If they really want to open up a passage in the future, it will be a long-term thing. It is not appropriate to let them enter and leave the core city freely. At the very least, there will be people among the Holy Venerates who are unwilling to do so." Ziqin deliberated over his tone. "However, if they are placed outside the core city, they will need to send more people to guard it. This will also be a great loss." Li Haoqing said, "But compared to the benefits, the loss is nothing. Even if they send a Holy Venerate to guard it, they can still pay this price." Ziqin nodded and said, "That's right. However, once the passage is opened, it will become the Holy Thunder Clan's passage. I believe that in the following process, there will definitely be many clans who use their power for personal gain. At that time, there will still be a lot of troubles. Or rather, we can ignore them and let the Holy Thunder Clan lose these resources." Li Haoqing said with a smile, "What about you? If it is in your hands, won't this situation happen?" Ziqin said truthfully, "Of course it will happen. However, that is only my personal matter. The Holy Thunder Clan's interests will not be affected." I will personally build the teleportation formation and pay for the resources used each time. Furthermore, the Sacred Thunder Tribe can rest assured that it will be in my world. Most importantly, every time the teleportation portal is activated, I will give the Sacred Rune Palace a free quota. Li Haoqing said, "In that case, you've really thought it through. It seems that you really want it." Zichen nodded and said, "If you give it to the Holy Thunder Clan, you'll only have one more entrance. But if you give it to me, it'll be different because it'll increase the popularity of the Tianwu world." "Then, how many slots do you intend to give to the Holy Thunder Clan?" Li Haoqing asked again. "I haven't decided on the quota for the Holy Thunder Clan yet, but I'll definitely give more quotas for the Sacred Rune Palace." Zichen suggested, "In other words, we should directly give more quotas to the Sacred Rune Palace. As for the Holy Thunder Clan, we won't give any quotas." "It seems like you're very clear about the Holy Thunder Clan." Li Haoqing smiled meaningfully. Zichen said, "There's no other way. We have to be clear about this. I can't keep doing things like scolding people while eating my food. Moreover, this matter was facilitated by the Sacred Rune Palace and me. The Holy Thunder Clan didn't contribute much from the beginning to the end. Even if we don't give them any quotas, there's no problem." "Then, what if the Holy Thunder Clan refuses this matter?" "Then I'll move the world to the outer area of the Holy Thunder Clan. Naturally, there won't be any problems." Li Haoqing nodded and agreed with Zichen's idea. After returning, he learned about the situation of the Sacred Rune Palace. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't angry. However, the development of a force depended on one's own ability. The Sacred Rune Palace couldn't compete with the Leijing family, so he had nothing to say. There was nothing wrong with being loyal, but there was a problem with being blindly loyal. Moreover, after such a thing happened, the Holy Thunder Clan didn't say anything and allowed the news to spread. Moreover, it was the other forces that cleared Zichen's name. The Holy Thunder Clan didn't say anything. This was indeed inexcusable. Go back and think about it seriously. If you really understand, then do it. Li Haoqing said, "But there's one thing. The quota for the Sacred Rune Palace can't be reduced." Obviously, Li Haoqing agreed. Zichen didn't expect it to be so easy. He was very surprised. "Now you don't have any other thoughts. Have a few drinks with me." "Okay." Zichen immediately got up and poured wine. He was overjoyed. The Tianwu continent welcomed another bumper harvest year. "What do you think of this world?" Li Haoqing suddenly asked. "Ah." Zichen was stunned. What did he mean? "What do you think of this world?" Li Haoqing asked again. It didn't seem like he was joking at all. Zichen was completely stunned. He couldn't even take care of the Tianwu continent. How could he dare to have an opinion of this world? Li Haoqing was obviously waiting for an answer. Zichen immediately shook his head and said, "I don't have an opinion. Everything is fine." Li Haoqing nodded. It was unknown whether he was satisfied with this answer or not. After drinking, Zichen took his leave. Next, he had to discuss with Jolina where the transmission array should be located. At the same time, he had enough time to manage the Tianwu continent. The Tianwu sacred region that was given to Zichen was also in the process of planning and development. From there, he could directly reach the Tianwu continent. After Zichen left, Lady came to the restaurant and sat in the seat that Zichen had previously sat in. The matter of the lost world was over. There was no point in him staying there. Not only had Lady returned, but the bloodline ancestor had also returned. At this time, even if the Holy Moon clan was unwilling, they would not do anything excessive to the Holy Thunder clan. After Lady sat down, Li Haoqing asked, "He still doesn't know his identity?" Lady picked up the wine cup that Zichen had used before and poured himself a cup of wine. Li Haoqing asked again, "Why don't you tell him?" "He is Zichen. What should I tell him?" Lady drank the wine in the cup. "You know, he is not the Zichen, you know." Li Haoqing said, Yes, he is not the Zichin I used to know, but he is still Zichin. He has been growing all the way. Although he is very different from the Zichin of the past, I don't think there is anything wrong with that. Lady paused and said, Moreover, if this is heaven's will, then let him continue to grow according to heaven's will. Childish, how can there be heaven's will in this world? Li Haoqing snorted. Maybe not. Lady let out a low sigh and said, But he is Lord Zichin. I wouldn't be surprised if heavens will appear in him. Li Haoqing looked at Lady and said, It has been so many years. Why blame yourself? Moreover, he is not dead, is he? Lady said, I always feel that something happened back then that I don't know about. Perhaps Lei Tian is hiding something from me. Then why don't you ask him clearly? Zichin is not dead. He should be alive. You may not be the strongest back then, but in terms of escaping, there are few opponents. He's dead. I killed him when I first met Zichin, said Yi Futian. Ah. Chapter 4149. After Zichin returned to the martial heaven continent, he began to develop his world at full speed. The Holy Talisman realm became a hot topic, and the world gradually learned about the resources there. The soul weapons that Zichin had once brought out were also known by the world. Some people even began to sell them, and they were extremely valuable. Just as everyone was filled with curiosity about the Holy Talisman realm, another piece of news spread. Zichen's martial heaven continent was suspected to be able to open a teleportation formation that led directly to the Holy Talisman realm. This piece of news caused quite a stir. Even some clans that were close to the martial heaven continent came here to investigate. Whether it was Zichen or Zhou Lina, they didn't give a clear answer. However, the price of joining the Tree City was 10 times higher than before. It seemed to be the best answer. Thinking of what Zichen had said before, the various powers didn't hesitate and began to enter Zichen's world. At the same time, those powers that didn't come from the Holy Thunder Clan also came to Zichen's world through the martial heaven sacred region, intending to join. Zhou Lina didn't refuse them and welcomed them. After all, the price was very high. Of course, there were also some people who harbored evil intentions and were secretly investigating. They were most likely looking for the lost race. Unfortunately, very few of them were able to leave the Tree City. Even if they could stealthily avoid the detection of the guards, those spirit trees would become Zichen's eyes and inform him of the situation immediately. Late at night, Zichen's main city was still very lively. Many shops were still open and brightly lit. There were also some restaurants where the sound of cultivators drinking wine could be heard. The sounds of laughter, drinking games, and clamor were endless. Beside Zichin, a few ripples surged, and his figure disappeared from the spot. He arrived above the sea of trees at the place where the largest ancient tree was located. The space around him was still rippling, preventing others from probing. Jono's face appeared. You haven't been here in a long time. Zichin said, I have some resources here. Take a look and see which ones are useful to you. Zichin took out a lot of resources. It was obvious that he had obtained them through experience. Aside from Jono, there was also the queen ant and the brood mother. They needed to grow as well. It wasn't just this time. During the years when Zichan wasn't around, Zhou Lina had also sent resources to him many times. Actually, there was no need to send them off. All he had to do was stay in his room and inform Jono. Naturally, there would be spirit trees that would take those resources underground. While Zichen's world was developing, a large portion of the income from the resources was given to the 3 existences. During this time, the 3 beings would also give Zhou Lina some things that could be exchanged for resources. Perhaps the Holy Spirits wouldn't be interested in these things, but they could be sold in the Sky Martial Holy Region. While the Sky Martial continent was developing, the Sky Martial Holy Region was also developing and becoming more and more prosperous. However, Zichin didn't say anything, so Zhou Lina didn't expand. After returning to his residence, Zichin took out the Zichin Palace. Currently, The palace seemed to be the only place he could use. As for what else was inside, he really didn't know. Ever since he returned last time, palace spirit Su hadn't appeared again. During this time, Zi-chan called out a few times, but there was no response. Placing the palace on the wooden table, Zi-chin was in a daze. As long as he was alone, he would think of the scene he saw in the lost world. Another Zi-chin, another him. Lei Tianshi gave half of the Zi-chin palace to him, but he didn't tell the truth. He only said that he refined it himself. However, in that memory, Lei Tianshi was clearly called Lei Tian. That year, Lei Tianshi suddenly disappeared, along with Shui Wu's aura. Zi-chin wanted to ask him some questions, but he couldn't find him. It was also at that time that he met Lei Di and Lei Jinka. The two of them brought him back to the Holy Thunder Clan. From then on, he didn't sense Lei Tianshi and Shui Wu's aura. From what he saw last time, it wasn't strange that Lei Tianshi knew Zi-chin. Was it possible that he entered Lei Tianshi's world on purpose? Why didn't he tell him the truth? Lei Di treated him well, and it was said that Lei Di was an ancient existence. Was it possible that he knew the Zi-chin from back then? Back then, when the two Saint Masters went out to bring him back, did they know his identity? But was he Zi-chin, or was he that Zi-chin? In the future, would that Zi-chan be reborn from his consciousness and control this body? This was the worry that appeared in Zi-chen's mind when he was free, so he didn't cultivate much during this time. Zi-chen, who was in a daze, suddenly noticed a light flickering in front of him. His eyes gradually regained their vigor. It was the hall spirit Su, who hadn't appeared until now. She was waving at Zi-chin. "Hey, it's time to wake up." "Why did you come out?" Zi-chin asked. "I called you many times, but you didn't come out." Hall spirit Su said, "I can only become one with the Zi-chin hall, so I naturally need to get used to it. How about this? What do you think of this dress?" The dazzling dress and beautiful face were obviously charming, but when she blinked at Zi-chin, she didn't look cute, but more charming. Zi-chin looked at her and said, "Now I want to know what resources are in the Zi-chin hall." "There are many resources, but you can't use them, so it's useless to say it now." Hall spirit Su stopped teasing Zi-chin. "However, with my authority, I can use some resources that can be used to temper your weak body." In this world, except for Hall spirit Su, no one dared to say that Zi-chen's body was weak. "How do I temper it?" Zi-chin asked. Hall spirit Su snapped her fingers and smiled. "Of course, I'll use it. There's so many good things. It would be a waste if I don't use them." A power appeared out of thin air. It was the power that Zi-chan had obtained when he went to the lost world, but its quality was purer and more refined. When this power appeared, a strong desire came from his body. He wanted to devour it. Zi-chen's eyes lit up. He knew that this was good stuff, and his body would be strengthened a lot. Hall spirit Su did not immediately give the power to Zi-chin. Instead, she said, "But before that, there's a crucial step." "What step?" Zi-chin suddenly had a bad feeling. "Bone tempering." As soon as she said that, Zi-chen's eyes blurred. In the next moment, he appeared in the Zi-chin hall. There was a person standing in the hall, an existence wearing battle armor. The moment he saw the other party, Zi-chin felt like running away. Last time he had encountered them, causing Zi-chin to experience 9 deaths in a day. Because your bones have already been formed, it will be difficult and time-consuming to temper them again. Therefore, in order to speed up your progress without affecting your root bone, this method of rebuilding after breaking is the most appropriate. After explaining, Hall spirit Su retreated. The existence in front rushed towards Zi-chin. Zi-chin took a step back and got into a fighting stance. Then there was a scream and the sound of bones breaking. Chapter 4150. Looking at the unconscious Zi-chin, Su shook her head and clicked her tongue. How pitiful! She squatted down beside Zi-chin and took out a ray of power. This ray of power seemed to be attracted and entered Zi Chen's body. It started to revive Zi Chen's body. Your current strength is not even 1,000th of what it was back then. Although I still don't understand why this happened, I know that my mission is to make you stronger. Even if I can't make you stronger, I have to make you as strong as you were back then. Too weak is no good. It's not worthy of your name. Zi Chen's body started to revive. Su took out ray after ray of power. This power was many times stronger than what Zi Chen had obtained from killing the humanoid creature. Say, back then, you suddenly abandoned Palace Zi Chen. Did you know that this day would come? That's why you left these things behind, so that you could grow stronger in the future? But why were you in such a hurry? Why didn't you tell me more clearly? Did Lei Tian and Lei Di know about this? Even if they didn't know, you should have told me, right? You didn't even say a word and just left Palace Hall Zi Chen behind. Who knew that after so many years, you would no longer be the same person? Su was still providing power to Zi Chen, but what happened? Why would someone as powerful as you fall and be reborn? But even you could fall back then. After being reborn, your battle strength is not even as strong as before. How can you guarantee your own safety? Zi Chen's body was recovering, and his body was glowing. Su suddenly cried out in surprise and stared at Zi Chen carefully. Previously, she seemed to have sensed an abnormal power in Zi Chen's body. However, after carefully sensing it, she did not discover anything. Was it an illusion? Zi Chen only woke up after the palace spirit. Su consumed 13 streams of energy. After waking up, Zi Chen's body was in pain, but his body was filled with powerful power. Refine this power first until you're familiar with the strength of your body, Su said. Zi Chen sat cross-legged and began to recover. His body's recovery speed was obviously not as fast as 9 deaths, but his growth was obvious. 5 days later, Zi Chen had fully recovered, and his physical strength had increased by a lot. Su the Hall Spirit said, "Then let's continue." The armored existence appeared once again. He punched out again. The pressure between heaven and earth suddenly reappeared, and Zi Chen immediately lost control of Zi Chen Palace. At the same time, his strength and soul power were strongly suppressed, and he couldn't use them. Otherwise, Zi Chen wouldn't have been so weak. One punch. It was still a single punch. Zi Chen fell to the ground, his consciousness slipping into unconsciousness. There is still a long way to go. Hall Spirit, Su continued to use her power to help Zi Chen recover. After Zi Chen recovered for the 3rd time, Su the Hall Spirit said, "Stop cultivating for now. Someone is looking for you." Zi Chen reappeared in the room. A saint spirit from the core city sent a message to Zi Chen, saying that someone was looking for him at the Saint Talisman Palace. Zi Chen followed the other party to the core city and saw Qing Yi. "Have you finished discussing?" Qing Yi asked directly after seeing Zi Chen. Zi Chen nodded and then asked, "What about you?" Qing Yi said, "There is no problem, but there are some details to be discussed. Let's go to my world." The two stepped into the teleportation array and returned to Zi Chen's world. Zi Chen told Qing Yi his plan. The entrance of the teleportation array would be in Zi Chen's world, but it would not be in Zi Chen's main city, but in another bustling city, Mengyao City. Qing Yi didn't have any objections because they also planned to build a new city where the 3 races could live together. At the same time, it would be a new reception area. "What resources do you need? Just tell me." "Everything will be paid for by the Tianwu continent." After discussing some details, Zi Chen said directly. Qing Yi said, "The cost of building 2 fixed teleportation arrays is not small, and every time it is activated, it will consume countless crystals. So before we came, we have already discussed that we will build our own teleportation arrays, so it will be easier to maintain them in the future." "That's good too." Zi Chen nodded and said, "If you have agreed, then we can start building now." Qing Yi didn't have any objections. She followed Ziqin to Mengyao City. Although this city was not the main city, it was still very bustling. There was only a vice city lord in this city. There was no city lord. Zhou Lina followed beside Ziqin, and the vice city lord personally stood beside the teleportation array to welcome them. The group of people chose a suitable place in the city until Qing Yi was satisfied. Then Ziqin asked a very important question. How often can the teleportation array be activated? Because the distance was too far, it consumed a lot of resources, so it couldn't be activated casually. Qing Yi smiled and said, if there are enough resources, it can be activated once a year. Ziqin wasn't worried about the teleportation resources. The Saint Spirit Realm didn't have anything else, but it had a lot of resources. So when it was built, the teleportation array was deliberately built to be bigger. After everything was arranged and Qing Yi was sent away, Ziqin returned to Ziqin Hall. Cultivation had to continue. The Saint Spirit Realm was very big, so big that it was infinite. The secrets of this world were far from being unearthed. First, there was the immortal realm with many resources, and then there was the lost world that was still blazing. In addition, there were many secret places, and even some places' resources might far surpass the total of the immortal realm and the lost world. On an uninhabited planet, there was a withered and dead silence. There was a towering mountain peak that reached into the clouds, and not a single blade of grass grew. After an unknown amount of wind and sun, many cracks had appeared on the mountain peak. Suddenly, these cracks intensified and exploded without warning. The mountain rocks rumbled and collapsed downwards. Waves of distorted power appeared out of thin air, and all the falling mountain rocks instantly turned into dust. When the billowing smoke and dust dissipated, a man in broken armor stood there. There was a hint of confusion in his eyes, as if he hadn't completely woken up. After an unknown amount of time, his eyes gradually regained clarity. Baiyu actually didn't die. He looked at his body and laughed out loud. The broken armor on his body turned into specks of light and scattered. This armor that had existed for who knows how many years completely disappeared from heaven and earth. Baiyu looked at the dilapidated world around him and frowned. How did the spirit realm become like this? His eyes gradually turned cold. What's the use of such a world? He stomped his feet, and the world fell apart. The only spiritual power was gathered together by him with great magic power, like an energy ball, and swallowed in one gulp. Standing in the void, he saw thousands of planets reflected in his eyes. There were spiritual power and life on the planets. That's more like it. Chapter 4151. Ziqin looked at the armored man in front of him and took a deep breath. He had been killed by a single punch, but now he could resist. Su the hall spirit stood aside and watched quietly. Ziqin clenched his fist and moved. He punched forward like a bright stream of light. She nodded. No matter how strong he was, his mentality was not bad. The armored man in front of him remained silent and punched again. The two fists met. There was a loud boom and waves of air spread out. Ziqin's body slid backward. A huge force came from his arm. Ziqin vaguely felt that his bones were about to be shattered. Ziqin blocked the opponent's punch. He was no longer killed by a single punch. It was just two punches. The opponent's second punch followed and landed on Ziqin's chest. A powerful shock. Ziqin was dead. Su the hall's spirit shook her head. She could not bear to look at it. Fortunately, the miserable Ziqin's return was not small. She was very pleased with the speed of his physical body's growth. This also meant that Ziqin's foundation was not bad. He was not as weak as she thought. In a remote tavern, Baiyu drank bland wine and listened to the discussions of the drinkers around him. This place was very remote, and news was somewhat blocked. At this moment, everyone was still talking about Ziqin and the voices of those forces. However, because it was too far away, The authenticity of many of the news had to be considered. Most of it was exaggerated. Fortunately, it was just idle talk at the table, and no one took it seriously. Ziqin? The Ziqin from the Thunder clan? Isn't he a holy venerable? How did he become a holy spirit? Does he have the same name? Bai Yu tapped the table with his fingers. He's the strongest person in the spiritual realm now. Bai Yu left the tavern and headed in the direction of the Holy Thunder clan. During this period, he deliberately measured the true combat strength of the holy spirits in the Holy Spirit realm. They were all defeated by a single punch. A holy spirit named Bai Yu appeared out of nowhere. As a 7-star saint spirit, he challenged all the opponents in the same realm as him. But he was always defeated with a single punch. No one knew his origins. This was an existence that had appeared out of nowhere, and it was said that he would challenge all the experts of the same level in the saint spirit realm. As the news spread, many people speculated whether the other party's combat strength was on par with Zichen's. The other party walked at a steady pace, moving from one star area to another. He didn't need to search for them, as someone would tell him where to find the famous 7-star saint spirits. Wherever he went, he would knock them down with one punch. Gradually, he gained a better understanding of the saint spirit of this world. Then he said, "It doesn't live up to its name." After that, he no longer challenged 7-star cultivators, but 8-star cultivators. But he still defeated his opponent with a single punch. Are there no experts in this world? Such a weak existence dares to call himself an 8-star? His words spread out, causing a commotion. Everyone was guessing where this guy, who appeared out of nowhere, came from. In the restaurant, Bai Yu was drinking. The entire restaurant was already full. It wasn't that business was good, but that almost everyone had come to see Bai Yu. There were even many people standing outside the restaurant. They all wanted to see this expert's peerless demeanor, because during this period there had been rumors that this person had the absolute combat strength to suppress Zichen. Who would want to see such an expert passing by? Apart from that, these people had also gathered here to watch a new confrontation. Bai Yu challenged the master of this star area, an 8-star saint spirit, to spar with him outside the restaurant. They also wanted to see if Bai Yu could still defeat his opponent with one punch this time. "Junior sister, your breakthrough speed is really fast. I'm really ashamed." Yu Buhuai looked at the woman beside him and said with a smile. The woman's body emitted a faint fluorescent light, making her look very mysterious. That was the unique moon power of the Holy Moon clan. Even the current 7-star Yu Buhuai couldn't naturally trigger this phenomenon. "Senior brother, you flatter me. You is only a 3-star saint spirit now. I'm still far from you." The woman, with an extraordinary temperament and a stunning appearance, said modestly. "Junior sister, what are you talking about? Who in the Holy Moon clan doesn't know that you are the future star of the clan? Maybe one day the Moon Lord will accept you as his last disciple." The Moon Lord was the master of the Holy Moon clan. The woman named Shangguanyu smiled faintly. In fact, no one knew that she had met the Moon Lord many years ago. He had offered to accept her as his disciple, but she had refused, because she knew that sooner or later she would leave and return to the Holy Thunder clan, because the person she cared about the most was there. Although she didn't know what had happened in the Lost World last time, she could feel the estrangement between the Holy Moon clan and Zichen. It wasn't between the two clans, but towards Zichen alone. In addition to the two of them, there were more than 10 people here, led by Yu Batian. He looked back at Shangguanyu and said, "Junior sister Yu don't worry. We are only going to meet one person this time. We won't delay your cultivation. We are almost at our destination. Junior sister can go around freely. We came out this time to let junior sister relax. Later, follow a few people to protect junior sister." There was a huge planet in front of them. Outside the planet, there were nearly 1,000 small planets. That was the area where the 8-star Holy Spirit, Charles was overseeing. Charles was nurtured by the Holy Moon clan and had been providing them with all kinds of information. The group flew down. After arriving at Charles's world, they didn't look for the 8-star Holy Spirit. Instead, they went to a restaurant full of people. The crowd dispersed, and a group of people walked into the restaurant. After these people came in, the young man in the lead waved his hand and said, "Disperse. There's no battle to watch." They didn't know what magic he had, but everyone really dispersed. Baiyu glanced at the young man and raised his eyebrows slightly. It wasn't that the young man's words were magic, but the power of the moon circulated when he waved his hand. The young man looked at Baiyu and smiled. "Charles isn't coming." Baiyu said, "You want to fight for him?" The young man immediately shook his head and said, "No, I'm here to talk business with you. My name is Yu Butian, and I'm from the Holy Moon clan." Baiyu said, "I only fight with people. I don't talk business." Yu Butian said, "Actually, you can listen. You don't have to refuse so quickly." Baiyu snorted, "Even if you want to talk business, you're not qualified because you can't take a punch from me." Yu Buhuai, who was behind Yu Butian, heard this and his eyes lit up. Yu Butian took the initiative to sit opposite Baiyu. "What if I represent the Holy Spirit? Do I have the qualifications?" Baiyu's eyes flashed coldly. "Tell me what business?" Yu Butian said, "A resource land. I hope, brother, Baiyu can go there and help us fight for it." "You're using me as a fighter?" "No, during this time. Someone called Zichin will definitely stop you. You've been challenging experts. I believe you must have heard of Zichen's name. As long as you and I reach this deal, you don't need to go to Zichin. Zichen will take the initiative to find you." "Really? I'm not lying." "Then what can I get?" "As long as you repel Zichin, we're willing to give you a quarter of the resources we get." Seeing Baiyu frown, Yu Butian added, "Of course, we can exchange these resources for resources that will help you cultivate." The others had already dispersed because the people of the Holy Moon clan had arrived and the battle couldn't be fought. The other people of the Holy Moon clan had also left. Only Yu Butian and Yu Buhuai sat there to drink with Baiyu. They had already booked the entire restaurant. During this time, the three of them talked and laughed, and their relationship eased a lot. Seeing the sincerity of the Holy Moon clan, Baiyu nodded and agreed. Anyway, he was looking for Zichin, and it was not bad for him to take the initiative to show up. As the sky was getting dark, Yu Butian got up and said, "Since we've already agreed, let's rest for the night. We'll set off early tomorrow morning." The Holy Moon clan had already arranged a place to stay. After the three of them came in, Yu Buhuai looked at one of the people of the Holy Moon clan. The other party nodded. Yu Buhuai said with a smile, "Big brother, go and rest. I'll arrange a place for brother Baiyu. I'll take him there." "All right." Yu Butian nodded. After cupping his fists at Baiyu, he was taken to his residence. "Brother Baiyu, have a good rest tonight and enjoy yourself. We'll talk about everything tomorrow morning." Yu Buhuai pointed to a room and said, "You'll stay here tonight." After that, Yu Buhuai smiled mysteriously at Baiyu and left. Chapter 4152. Who are you? Shangguan Yu looked at the man who pushed the door open and immediately stood up, vigilant. Previously, she had sensed that there was someone outside and thought that it was a waiter serving tea and water, so she did not pay much attention to it. However, this person was obviously not someone who could suppress his aura, but she still felt a strong sense of danger. Baiyu saw the vigilance in Shangguan Yu's eyes, and several thoughts flashed through his mind. He said, "Someone from the Yu clan?" Shangguan Yu said, "Holy Moon clan. Who are you and why are you here?" Baiyu turned and closed the door. Shangguan Yu began to mobilize the moon energy in her body, and her figure became more hazy. Light flowed around her, and she seemed to be ready to attack at any time. "If I want to attack, it's useless even if you're a few levels higher. You don't have to be so vigilant, I won't attack you. After Bai Yu closed the door, he turned around and sat opposite Shang Guanyu. He motioned for Shang Guanyu to sit down, and then he stopped talking and fell into deep thought. This was not normal. Shang Guanyu still did not let down her guard. At this moment, her mind was tense, and she was paying attention to the other party's every move. At the same time, she was thinking of a way to escape. Suddenly, her expression changed, and she said, "You're Bai Yu." Bai Yu looked up at Shang Guanyu. You know me." Shang Guanyu said, "I've heard of your name. Why are you here?" The reason why Shang Guanyu had heard of Bai Yu was naturally because of Ziqin. The other party seemed to have come for Ziqin, and she had deliberately paid attention to him. She did not expect to see him here today. Moreover, the other party had actually walked into her room. This was naturally not a coincidence. Looking at Shang Guanyu, his twinkling eyes, Bai Yu said, "You're from the Holy Moon clan?" Shang Guanyu said, "You've already asked before." Previously, Bai Yu had said the Yu clan, not the Holy Moon clan. At this moment, he blurted out the Holy Moon clan, which meant that his heart was not stable. "Do you have a grudge with them?" Bai Yu asked again. "No grudge." Shang Guanyu shook her head. Bai Yu didn't understand. Since there was no enmity between them, why were they willing to offer her up? Such a beautiful and intelligent woman was rare even back in the day. Looking at Bai Yu's changing expression, Shang Guanyu seemed to have guessed what he was thinking, and she said, "I am Ziqin's fiancée." "What did you say?" Bai Yu was stunned, and his expression changed drastically. "I am Ziqin's fiancée." Shang Guanyu continued. "I see." Bai Yu regained his senses and sighed. "So that's how it is." Bai Yu stood up and looked at Shang Guanyu's right hand, saying, "You are very smart and you have made the right bet. Although luck plays a huge role, for people like us, luck is also a part of our strength. For example, I'm a lucky person. Therefore, you don't need to have too much luck. As long as it works at the crucial moment, that's enough." Bai Yu turned around and walked towards the door. "Rest assured and rest. I will keep watch for you." Before opening the door, Bai Yu laughed. "Idiot, I really didn't expect that my first business deal after Bai Yu was with a bunch of idiots. How can such a business be profitable?" Bai Yu opened the door and closed it again. Then he sat on the doorstep. There was a life-saving item hidden in Shang Guanyu's right hand. Yu Buhui entered his room. At this moment, his face was full of smiles. It was a smile of victory, and also a smile of a successful conspiracy. "Ziqin, I don't know if you have heard of the proverb, 'Lose the wife and lose the soldiers.' It is referring to you now. Your wife has become someone else's plaything, and you are going to lose your own mineral veins. Not only are we the biggest beneficiaries, but we are also firmly in control of Bai Yu, a powerhouse in our hands." Yu Buhui smiled proudly. "This is a plan that kills 3 birds with 1 stone." After Yu Batian returned to his room, for some reason, he suddenly felt uneasy. He walked out of the room to get some fresh air. At his level, he shouldn't have this kind of feeling. It wasn't like it was some kind of disaster. After walking out of the room, he began to wander around. Then he saw Bai Yu sitting on the threshold. He was a little surprised and went forward. "Brother Bai Yu, you haven't rested yet?" Bai Yu smiled faintly. "I won't be resting today. I will be keeping watch for a heroine." "Keeping watch for a heroine?" Yu Batian was slightly startled and asked in confusion, "What do you mean, Brother Bai Yu?" Bai Yu pointed behind him. "Someone is already living here, so I won't snatch it from her." Yu Butian's expression suddenly changed and his body swayed. "Really?" At this moment, the door opened. Shang Guanyu appeared at the door and called out, "Senior brother." Seeing Shang Guanyu, Yu Butian's vision went black and he almost fell. Cold sweat instantly drenched his body. He called out, "Junior sister," but his voice was trembling. Bai Yu looked at Yu Butian with a calm expression. Yu Butian quickly regained his senses. First, he apologized to Shangguan Yu, bowing deeply and apologizing. Then he bowed to Bai Yu and said, "Brother Bai Yu saved my life. I can't thank you enough." With that, Yu Butian turned and left. Bai Yu looked at Yu Butian's back and saw that his back was completely drenched in cold sweat. This was not an act. He was really frightened. As a higher-up of the Holy Moon clan, Yu Butian knew much more than Yu Buhuai. Last time, Zichun had made them suffer a great loss in the Lost World. But in the end, the Holy Moon clan still spoke up for Zichun. Why? Was it a matter of face? Obviously not. It was because Shangguan Yu, and junior sister Mingyue had gone to find the Moon Master. Moreover, he was also one of the few who knew that the Moon Master, who rarely appeared, would naturally appear as long as Shangguan Yu, and Mingyue asked for an audience. There had always been rumors in private that if it weren't for junior sister Yu, having an extraordinary relationship with Zichun of the Holy Thunder Clan, the Moon Master would have accepted her as his last disciple long ago. This time, Yu Buhuai had proposed to bring Shangguan Yu along, and he had agreed. His original intention was indeed to let his junior sister relax, and at the same time deepen his relationship with her. Who would have thought that the idiot would come up with such a bad idea? After Yu Butian left, there was a force that shrouded the surroundings. Whether it was Shangguan Yu, or Bai Yu, they did not know what happened next. In short, when everyone left the next day, there was no trace of Yu Buhuai. In addition, there were 3 senior brothers who had participated in this matter who were not with the team. Although Yu Butian's expression was still gentle, everyone could see the haze in his heart. Bai Yu seemed to have forgotten what had happened yesterday. After the team set off, he looked at Shangguan Yu, and said, "After you reach the Lost World, please inform Zichun in your own name that I, Bai Yu, have something important to discuss with him." Shangguan Yu, shook her head and said, "I'm afraid it's not possible in the Lost World. I don't have that authority, but I can try to inform him on the Moon Star. You can meet him there. It's only 1 step away from the Lost World." Chapter 4153. Zichun no longer needed to deal with the matters of the Lost World. He was wholeheartedly cultivating. The results were good, and the hardships he had suffered were unimaginable. Fist against fist, waves of air rolled. Zichun's figure quickly retreated. At the same time, his figure quickly twisted and blocked the opponent's second punch. His reaction was much faster than before. Then Zichun's counterattack arrived. He used combat techniques. After a punch, his figure disappeared, and he was already preparing for the second punch. Punch after punch, the 2 of them exchanged blows, and they were able to fight for a while. After 50 punches, Zichun was hit 15 times. His body could no longer hold on, and he collapsed. The hall spirit, Su, saw all of this and gave Zichun a few words of encouragement after he woke up. Zichun didn't learn any techniques. He just kept strengthening his body. His combat techniques were activated with his body. As for his soul power, he couldn't use it because it had been suppressed. The previous storm had long passed, but in the core city, no one came to ask Zichun what the resources he had obtained in the end. It seemed that everyone had forgotten about this matter. No one asked, and even those families who were obviously hostile to Zichun didn't make a fuss about this matter. This seemed a little strange. Cultivation, still cultivation. Powerful, still powerful. Until a piece of news spread to the Tianwu world and reached Zichun's ears. An unfamiliar name appeared in his field of vision. Bai Yu. Next, Zichun inquired about Bai Yu. He was very surprised by the other party's battle results. If he hadn't met those armored existences in the hall of Zichun would never have believed that such a powerful existence existed in the world. Even if he heard about Bai Yu, he wouldn't have cared. He defeated the enemy with a single punch. He was afraid that he would encounter very ordinary people. However, During this period of cultivation, Zichen was very clear about the strength of those who practiced with him. At this moment, Baiyu, who defeated the enemy with a single punch, appeared, so he had to pay attention. Moreover, this news was spread by Shangguanyu. She was cultivating in the Holy Moon clan, so how could she care about this kind of thing? Moreover, he even sent a message to ask him to go to the Moon Star to discuss matters with Baiyu. Zichen, who had all kinds of thoughts in his mind, didn't stop. As soon as he received the news, he left the Tianwu world and headed for Moon Star. During this period of time, he had used the teleportation array several times, trying to reach the moon planet as quickly as possible. At the same time, he also sent people to find out why Shangguanyu was related to Baiyu. The Holy Thunder Clan's information had already spread throughout the entire Saint Spirit realm. Furthermore, Yu Batian and the others had no intention of hiding their tracks, so they quickly obtained accurate information. After reading the contents of the report, Zichen's face immediately darkened. Moonstar was still bustling with activity, perhaps even more so than before. The news of Baiyu and Zichen going to war had already spread. Everyone wanted to see whether Zichen, the #1 person in the same realm, was stronger, or whether Baiyu, who came later, was stronger. Moreover, there had been rumors in private that this battle was related to the benefits in the Lost World. This battle would be held in the largest square on Moonstar. The Holy Moon clan had already opened up a small world in the square where they could battle. Outside the small world, there were many viewing platforms set up. This battle was destined to be the focus of attention. Yu Buhui hadn't appeared since the previous night. Shangguanyu had been following Yu Batian as if nothing had happened. Baiyu also followed the group, occasionally chatting with Shangguanyu. However, this girl was just too clever, and she rarely mentioned anything about Zichen. Even when she did, it was usually some unimportant things, so he was not able to get any useful information from her. Compared to the idiot last time, Shangguanyu was much smarter. In fact, Baiyu wasn't very willing to deal with Yu Batian because he wasn't very smart and his combat strength and talent were very ordinary. Such a person wasn't qualified to be on his side. They stood at a commanding height and looked at the small world in front of them. Yu Batian was still giving his final instructions. Baiyu listened silently and didn't respond. At this moment, someone came to Yu Batian's side and whispered a few words. Yu Batian turned around and said, Zichen is on his way at full speed and will be here soon. Baiyu looked at Shangguanyu. It seems that he cares about you a lot. Shangguanyu said, he cares about everyone. Baiyu smiled faintly. I didn't expect him to be such a sentimental person. It surprised me. A voice sounded from behind and a beautiful figure flew over. It was Mingyu. She came closer and looked at you, from head to toe, then looked at Baiyu with vigilance in her eyes. Finally, she looked at Yu Batian and said, Senior brother, what is the meaning of this? Yu Batian said, You haven't seen Zichen for many years. There's nothing wrong with meeting a friend today. Baiyu's lips curled up into a smile. Interesting. Another outstanding talent. He didn't expect it to be related to Zichen. Then, was this Zichen the same Zichen? At this moment, exclamations sounded. A person flew over from the horizon like a stream of light, heading straight ahead. Baiyu stared at the figure, and his eyes gradually lit up. He recognized that person. Even if there weren't many exclamations around him, he would still recognize him. Zichen! It really was him. After so many years, they met again. Zichen's figure was in the air, and his eyes swept around like cold lightning. Many people couldn't get used to his sharp gaze and avoided it. In the end, his gaze stopped on Baiyu, but he didn't look at Baiyu. Instead, he looked at Yu Batian. His eyes were very cold as a blade. Yu Batian nodded at Zichen and said, Brother Zichen, long time no see. Zichen didn't respond to him. Instead, he looked at Shangguanyu. His blade-like eyes instantly softened as if they had turned into water. Are you okay? Shangguanyu nodded. Her beautiful eyes were filled with mist. Zichen said, "After this battle, follow me back to the Holy Thunder Clan." "Okay." Shangguan Yu nodded again, and Mingyu also nodded. Yu Butian's expression changed. He didn't expect that Zichen's first words would be this. If he let the two of them leave the Holy Moon Clan like this, he would be guilty of a great crime. However, there were too many people around, so he couldn't explain too much. He could only look at Baiyu, hoping that the other party would smooth things over. Baiyu stared at Zichen and said, "If you want your woman to live, then bet all the mineral veins and resources you obtained in the Lost World. Let's fight to determine the winner." Baiyu said this very loudly, and everyone heard it clearly. An uproar immediately broke out in the surroundings. No one had expected that Zichen would actually come because of this. Yu Butian was so angry that he wanted to curse because this wasn't his previous instructions. Chapter 4154. The surroundings were in an uproar as everyone discussed animatedly. Yu Butian's expression was very ugly. This was going to be troublesome. This was because Shangguan Yu and Mingyue had been personally sent over by Sacred Venerable Lady. The relationship between the two women and Zichen had been secretly investigated by them. Now, because of that idiot Yu Buhuai, the matter had been completely ruined. Zichen didn't waste any more words with Baiyu. He turned around and flew towards the small world where the battle was taking place. Baiyu smiled and followed him. Those people from the Moon Clan were obviously superfluous and childish to play tricks in front of him. Who was he? He was Baiyu, the sacred, venerable protector of the past. What kind of figure was he? How could he be schemed against by a few idiots? The two entered the battlefield space. Baiyu looked at Zichen and said, "Before the battle, you and I have to make things clear. If you lose this battle, all the resources you obtained in the Lost World will belong to me." Zichen said, "Will it belong to you or the Sacred Moon Clan?" Baiyu said frankly, "It's about the same. I will have a certain share." Everyone in the outside world heard it clearly. Obviously, this was the Sacred Moon Clan scheme. They were using Zichen's woman to threaten Zichen and have such an unfair battle. This was because if Zichen won, he would only bring back his woman. But if he lost, he would have to hand over all the gains in the Lost World. For a moment, everyone looked at the Sacred Moon Clan in a different light. This was because it was a little shameless, and it was done by one of the 4 sacred clans, the Sacred Moon Clan. Regardless of the outcome of today's battle, the reputation of the Sacred Moon Clan would be affected. Yu Butian's expression gradually darkened. He didn't expect Baiyu to not give the Sacred Moon Clan any face and directly point out this matter. "Let me see how much strength you have left." After saying that, Baiyu took a step forward. This step instantly closed the distance between him and Zichen. Now, the two of them were only an arm's length apart. This distance was enough for him to throw a punch. No one had expected that the battle between the two strongest existences would start so abruptly. For a moment, all kinds of boiling voices sounded. The other party threw out a punch. Everyone's eyes were glued to the front. Would the outcome of the battle be decided with a single punch? This was because Baiyu had always won in such a way since the beginning of the battle. The power of the fist was vast and mighty, sputtering out countless rays of light. With a muffled sound, powerful ripples spread out in all directions. Zichen's figure was sent flying back over 100 meters. There was a universe within the space of the battlefield, and the area was larger than expected. Therefore, Zichen was not sent flying. The surrounding exclamations suddenly stopped. Everyone held their breaths and stared ahead. After the punch, Zichen did not fall. Shangguan Yu, who had been a little worried earlier, was now relieved. Since he had not been defeated by a single punch, it meant that the chances of him defeating Zichen were very slim. Not bad. I want to see how many punches you can take. Baiyu charged forward once again, heading straight for Zichen. The second punch was delivered. Zichen's figure flashed, evading the attack. Not bad. Bai Yu smiled faintly, turned around, and attacked at an even faster speed. A sharp whistle sounded beside him. Zichen chose to evade again. This was the result of his recent cultivation. Otherwise, even if he could block the previous punch, he would have been seriously injured. The other party was indeed very strong, unimaginably strong. In the blink of an eye, dozens of punches had been exchanged. Zichen did not throw a single punch. He had been dodging the entire time. On the previously quiet battlefield, there were some whispers. Although Yu Batian was dissatisfied with Bai Yu's previous words, he was still very satisfied with Bai Yu's combat strength. If it was him, he would have been defeated no matter which of the two he faced. All right, I admit that your speed is not bad, but what's the point of continuing to dodge? Bai Yu, who had failed to hit Zichen with his consecutive punches, slowly lost his patience. Zichen stood in the distance and said, "All right, I'll show you my strength." His figure flashed, and as if he had teleported, he appeared in front of Bai Yu. This was the first time he took the initiative to attack. He delivered a punch. The power of this punch was not any weaker than Bai Yu's attack. Bai Yu also laughed, and the light on his fist shone brightly. Fist against fist. With a loud bang, the two each retreated more than 10 feet. They were actually evenly matched. Zichen smiled faintly and said again, "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Bai Yu sneered. Boom, boom, boom. Another roar sounded. In sharp contrast to the previous dodging, Zichen did not retreat a single step this time. This time, he collided with Bai Yu with all his strength. And from the beginning to the end, the smile on Zichen's face never disappeared. Yu Batian was no longer calm. Although Bai Yu had stepped forward in this battle with Zichen, it had already damaged the reputation of the Holy Moon clan. If Bai Yu could not win, the Holy Moon clan would suffer a great loss. He inadvertently glanced at the two women beside him, and he suddenly had a headache. If he had known that the idiot Yu Buhuai would come up with such a rotten idea, he would never have let Shang Guanyu come out. Now, if the two insisted on leaving the Holy Moon clan, then he, as the leader, would inevitably be implicated. In the previous trip to the Lost World, there were already people who were dissatisfied with his behavior. This time, they might take advantage of this opportunity to make things difficult for him. If Bai Yu could win and take back the resources of the Holy Thunder clan, the following matters would be easy to resolve. But if he lost, it would be almost impossible for him, the leader, to have such power in the clan. You mustn't lose. Looking at the battle in front of him again, Yu Butian's mood became very heavy. If it were not for Yu Buhuai, he would not be so passive. But it had already happened, and it was useless for him to complain. He could only wait quietly for the result. Judging from the battle situation, whether it was Zichen or Bai Yu, they seemed to be at ease at this moment and did not show any signs of defeat. If I can bring him back to the clan, it can be considered a merit. Yu Batian thought so. After all, this was an existence whose battle strength could contend with Zichen. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged more than 100 punches. In the last collision, Zichen borrowed the force to retreat more than 200 feet. He did not immediately continue to attack like before, but stood there. His internal organs were churning, and he needed to be stabilized. Bai Yu did not seem to be in a better state, and he also did not immediately attack. After taking a breath to adjust, Zichen, who was still a little pale, looked at Bai Yu and said, "Do you still want to fight?" "What do you think?" Bai Yu wiped away a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. "If you don't want to fight, I can accept admitting defeat." Zichen said, "In that case, don't blame me for being impolite." His eyes immediately turned cold, and he snapped his fingers and said a word. "Fall." Bai Yu's expression suddenly changed, and his internal organs, which had been completely suppressed, began to churn violently. A power that had entered his body at an unknown time erupted. Bai Yu's face turned red, and the next moment he vomited blood. Chapter 4155. It was a combat technique. Zichen had learned this technique from the Holy Talisman realm, but he didn't use his soul power to activate it. Instead, he used his strength. He had carefully injected his strength into the previous 100 or so punches. Bai Yu didn't notice it at all. Now that the accumulated strength had completely exploded, Bai Yu was injured, as expected. The crowd was in an uproar. Was Bai Yu defeated? Yu Butian's expression changed drastically. Such a turn of events was completely out of his expectations. Shang Guanyu, and Mingyue both heaved a sigh of relief. The smile that had just appeared on Zi Chen's face had already disappeared. He realized that Bai Yu was only injured and coughing up blood. He didn't collapse as he had expected. Interesting. You actually suffered a hidden loss. As expected of Zi Chen. Bai Yu wiped the blood off his chin and looked at Zi Chen. Since you are already serious, I will accompany you to the end. Bai Yu stretched out 2 fingers and put them together like a sword. A sword aura burst out from his fingertips. A sharp aura appeared and the surrounding space distorted. The surroundings became quiet again. Only now did everyone remember that both sides had only used their fists since the start of the battle. They hadn't used any powerful techniques. At this moment, it was obvious that Bai Yu had used his full strength. Yu Butian, who was nervous earlier, relaxed a little. Looking at the situation, both sides still had to fight. The outcome was still unknown. This is my strength. The previous one was just a warm-up. He stretched out his hand, and a sword aura went straight for Zichen. This move was very similar to Zi Chen's brush of heaven and earth. However, the power of the two was obviously different. Looking at the incoming sword aura, Zi Chen's power circulated. An ancient lightning aura surged out. Sensing this aura, Bai Yu's expression changed slightly. The power of thunder fire? Zi Chen said seriously, "It's the power of ancient thunder fire." He punched out. This time his fist was completely wrapped in the power of ancient thunder fire. Its power was much stronger than before. Ancient times. Bai Yu sighed. Indeed, it has been a long time. His sword chi was shattered, and the sword within it was also dispersed by Zi Chen's punch. After seeing Zi Chen's thunderflame power, he didn't continue to attack because it wouldn't be meaningful. The power of his sword was of the same level as Lei Yan's. Perhaps there was a difference in purity, but it was not a big difference. Therefore, when it came to pure power, the battle prowess of the two was actually on par. Take another punch of mine. If you can block it, I'll give you a chance to negotiate with me. Bai Yu said, "This punch of mine is called Dragon Fist or Dragon Fist." The instant Bai Yu clenched his fist, Zi Chen heard what he thought was the loud roar of a dragon. Next, a true dragon, formed entirely from sword energy, appeared on Bai Yu's arm. It circled around his arm before converging on his fist. When the true dragon entered his fist was as dazzling as the sun. Powerful waves of air surged from the front, blowing Zi Chen's robes. Bai Yu had yet to make a move, but he was already so powerful. Zi Chen took a deep breath. He didn't dare to be careless. He mobilized the power of the ancient thunder flame to the limit. A resounding dragon roar came from the battlefield and spread out in all directions. A true dragon of sword chi rushed towards Zi Chen. Looking at the true dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws, Zi Chen's clenched fist burned with flames. Outside the flames, countless lightning bolts circled. He looked forward and punched out. Thunderflame. The thunderflame drowned the true dragon in an instant. Then, the two powerful energies clashed. This unique battlefield began to distort violently as if it couldn't withstand the excessive power and was on the verge of collapse. There was a loud boom. The true dragon of sword will exploded, and the thunder flame also erupted. Powerful energy surged. It was a total explosion. The battlefield, which was already in a precarious situation, could no longer withstand this power and collapsed. Ziqin and Baiyu were swallowed by this energy. Outside the battle platform, there was a commotion. The wind generated by the terrifying aura sent many people flying. Among them, half of them were injured. In the sky, rays of brilliance suddenly fell. Those were powerful saint powers. They were like barriers blocking the aftershocks. The high-level saint spirits, who were hiding in the sky to watch the battle, had no choice but to show themselves. The defense they put up was also constantly distorting under the impact of the aftershocks. At this moment, the faces of the saint spirits were filled with shock. It was just a surging energy aftershock, but it required them to join forces. If they were to face this power head-on, who would be able to survive? The energy aftershocks dissipated. Ziqin and Baiyu were still standing in the air. Their robes fluttered in the wind, and they didn't seem to be injured at all. At this moment, everyone recognized Baiyu's combat strength. He was an existence that came out of nowhere, but was not weaker than Ziqin. Because this was the moon star, and also because of the lost world, people from various forces were here. Therefore, at this moment, people from other forces were secretly planning to recruit Baiyu into their family. Baiyu was qualified to do so, regardless of success or failure. Baiyu said, "It seems that it's impossible for us to decide the winner for the time being. Why don't we call it quits and make peace? Of course, the condition is that you give half of your resources to me. You can also take your women back." Ziqin sneered, "That's a good idea. What if I don't agree?" Baiyu said helplessly, "If you don't agree, then I can only make you admit defeat. Actually, what I'm best at is not attacking, but defense. After all, my name is Baiyu. My real skill is protection." Baiyu sized Ziqin up from head to toe and said, "If you were at the 8-star realm now, you might have a chance to break through my defenses. But at present, you and I are at the same realm, so you can't break through my defenses. If you can't break my defense, I'm invincible. If I'm invincible, you'll naturally be the loser." "Is that so? What a coincidence. I'm not very good at defense, but I'm very confident in my attack. Why don't we have a fight?" Ziqin said. "Let's see if I win or you remain undefeated." "You asked for it." Baiyu snorted and said, "Then let me see what kind of ability you have to be able to break through my sword's protection." Baiyu formed a seal with both hands. Streams of sword intent flowed around his body and finally turned into a huge light sword. The light sword completely protected Baiyu. Looking at the light sword with the sword tip facing upwards, everyone could see that it was not just a defense. Once it was used, it would be a powerful attack. Ziqin felt the power of the light sword, but his expression was still calm as he said, "This move of yours is not bad, but I still advise you to just defend with all your strength, because this move of mine may be a move that will determine life and death." Ziqin also began to form a seal. Naturally, it was his recognized strongest technique, the thunder controlling technique. Just as Ziqin was forming a seal seriously, Baiyu suddenly asked, "Is it the thunder controlling technique?" Ziqin said indifferently, "You also know about the thunder controlling technique." Chapter 4156. Everyone thought that they were about to see a different battle because one of the two would definitely lose. The winner or loser would be revealed very soon. However, no one expected that Baiyu would actually admit defeat at this moment. Moreover, it was so sudden that many people could not react in time. Ziqin was also stunned and stopped forming seals. "What did you say?" "I'm not fighting anymore. I admit defeat." Baiyu waved his hand again. However, at this moment, the light sword that enveloped him immediately enlarged and enveloped Ziqin in the sky. "Shameless! Shang Guanyu exclaimed and flew towards the sky. Junior sister, don't. The battle is not over yet. Don't break the rules of the battle. Yu Butian raised his hand and shot out a beam of energy to block Shang Guanyu. He was very surprised when Baiyu suddenly expressed his intention to surrender. At that time he had some reservations. Now that he saw Baiyu's action, he understood. This was also one of the tactics. In his heart, he was very impressed. Moreover, this was not against the rules. Deep down, Yu Butian actually admired this approach a little. After all, there weren't many people who could make Zi Qin careless. Zi Chen looked at Baiyu. Previously, he was very vigilant and ready to attack at any time. However, Baiyu spoke first. I have no ill intentions. I just have something to tell you. There was no hostility in the power that spread over. Baiyu asked, Do you still recognize me? Have we met before? Zi Chen asked in confusion. Baiyu sighed. Back then, everyone said that you had disappeared. I didn't expect you to have fallen. Zi Chen's heart skipped a beat. What did you say? You've already forgotten what happened back then. Baiyu said, or rather, what happened in the ancient times. Zi Chen's expression changed. After a while, he shook his head and said, I'm Zi Chen, just Zi Chen. I know nothing about the ancient times. A great expert like you is very famous in the spiritual realm. You shouldn't have suddenly disappeared or fallen. Baiyu shook his head and said, because back then, everyone said that even if you, Zi Chen, fell, it was in the great divine infernal war. Fiend gods? Zi Chen asked, is there such a tribe? The god race and the demon race, referred to as the god race and the demon race. Baiyu explained, back then, you were the main force that killed the god fiends. Zi Chen couldn't remember anything about the ancient times, so he could only listen to Baiyu's narration. The gods and demons are constantly attacking the spirit realm. They seem to want to devour the spirit realm. The battlefield has never stopped. Thinking back to the battle of the past, Baiyu's heart was filled with emotion. I died in the war of gods and demons, but I don't know how I came back to life. It seems that I didn't die completely. Zi Chen thought of the demon's suppressing gate. There was a powerful saint venerable overseeing the place, as well as an even bigger Thunder Clan ancient tree. Could it be that it was those people who blocked the door that resolved the battle? Zi Chen asked, were the battles in ancient times very fierce? So much so that the ancient civilization disappeared and all the cultivation techniques were lost. Baiyu said the battles weren't that fierce. Although the gods and demons were powerful, our spirit race wasn't weak either. However, the sudden appearance of a celestial phenomenon seemed to have the power to destroy the world. I wasn't able to last until the end, but I guess that the power of the destroyed civilization should be a celestial phenomenon. What celestial phenomenon? Zi Chen asked. Baiyu pointed to the sky and said, a power from the heavens. It said that it's a power from outside the three realms. After saying this, Baiyu looked at Zi Chen with a strange gaze. What's wrong? Baiyu said, there was a rumor back then that you obtained a set of coordinates from outside the three realms and suddenly disappeared to explore it. After the celestial phenomenon appeared, some people speculated that the gods and demons attacked the spirit realm because they received orders from outside the three realms. The truth of the past had long been lost to history. The current Zi Chen couldn't remember anything. Of course, it was also possible that Zi Chen was just Zi Chen and not the ancient Zi Chen. Baiyu continued to talk about ancient times, especially about Zi Chen. In the end, Baiyu shouted, don't sleep anymore. You've come back to life, so it's time to wake up. This made Zi Chen feel very uncomfortable, because he was just Zi Chen with flesh and blood and memories. He had nothing to do with that person from ancient times. If that person came back to life, would his memories be buried? Or rather, would the other party devour him and become another Zi Chen? Baiyu seemed to be unaware of Zi Chen's worries and continued. Although I've only traveled a part of the spirit realm, I've seen many people. They're too weak now. If danger comes again, even without the celestial phenomenon, they'll die a horrible death. From the looks of it, you're the only one who can fight in this vast spirit realm. Under the nervous gazes of the crowd, Bayou's light sword finally disappeared. Zichen and Bayou stood together. Neither of them fell, and the bloody scene they imagined did not appear. For a moment, many people were stunned. What are you looking at? Didn't I say earlier that I've admitted defeat? Bayou looked around and said indifferently, Do I look like someone who doesn't keep his word? There was an uproar. It was actually true. But if he really admitted defeat, why did he have to use his light sword to envelop Zichen? Zichen turned to the two girls and said, Let's go back. After this victory, Zichen also heard many secrets. Zichen's mood was very complicated. As for the lost world, he couldn't go back because he might not be able to come out alive after entering. The two girls nodded and walked towards Zichen. After this incident, they no longer had any attachment to the Holy Moon clan. Wait! Yu Butian shouted, wanting to stop the two. Is this the credibility of the Holy Moon clan? Zichen said coldly, The outcome has been decided, and you still want to stop people. Yu Butian hurriedly explained, Brother Zichen, you misunderstood. We didn't mean to threaten you with Junior Sister, but Zichen waved his hand and interrupted Yu Butian. It doesn't matter. From now on, you, and Mingyue have nothing to do with your Holy Moon clan. Also, how many resources have they consumed over the years? Send someone to give me a list later, and I will compensate them at the original price. Yu Butian was stunned. This was not the result he wanted. The two girls soared into the air and left decisively. The surroundings were quiet as everyone watched the development of the situation quietly. This time, the Holy Moon clan had undoubtedly shot themselves in the foot. Not only did they not get resources from Zichen, but they also lost two geniuses. Zichen turned and left. The two girls followed. Wait for me. I will also leave with you. Bayou's voice sounded. He actually left with Zichen. Yu Butian was stunned on the spot, as if he had been petrified. He did not move for a long time. Shangguan Yu, and Mingyue had left without getting resources, and even the powerful Bayou had left with them. This was his last hope for a meritorious service. Bayou, he shouted unwillingly. Bayou said without turning his head, I lost, so the deal between us naturally does not count. To be honest, your Holy Moon clan is not open and above board. I am not good at dealing with people like you. Not only did he leave decisively, but he also stabbed the Holy Moon clan in the back. It would not be long before the news spread. Why are you following me? Zichen looked back at Bayou. Bayou had indeed followed. He did not deliberately get close, nor did he stay too far away. He was neither fast nor slow. Although the spiritual realm is big, I have nowhere to go, so I can only follow you. Bayou said, and you are very famous. Maybe you can attract a lot of old friends. Zichen was very upset because he was not the Zichen of the past. Of course, there were not so many old friends to see. He waved his hand and said, You are not welcome in my world. Go find someone else. After saying that, he sped up. Seeing Zichen leave decisively, Bayou was stunned. He wanted to follow Zichen. In his expectation, even if Zichen was not grateful, he should have welcomed him with open arms. What kind of method was this to directly reject him? He was a great expert. Even if he was only at the 7-star realm, he was still the target of many forces. But in Zichen's case, he was actually despised. In an instant, Bayou thought of many ways to go, but after thinking about it, he still decided to follow Zichen. Compared to others, Zichen, an old friend, was more trustworthy. So he followed and said, I won't follow you for nothing. If you need my help, just tell me. Bayou sped up to catch up. Clearly, he was determined to follow Zichen. Zichen tried a few times, but after failing to shake him off, he let him go. He would not go to the lost world. All the situations there were to be dealt with by grace, returning to his own world. There were no surprises or dangers on the way. The last battle was still brewing. In addition to Bai Yu and Zi Chen's powerful battle strength, the news of the Holy Moon clan using Zi Chen's friends to threaten a fierce battle naturally spread. At the same time, some negative news about Yu Butian also spread. For example, this matter was completely done by him alone and had nothing to do with the Holy Moon clan. In the Holy Glory clan, Brilliant came to the core city and went to find the Holy Glory City Lord to tell him of his intention to leave. The city lord of Holy Glory City said in shock, "Why are you leaving for no reason?" Brilliant said, "I have been away from home for a long time. I want to go home and have a look." The city lord said, "Isn't this your home?" Brilliant said, "I was born in the Tianwu continent. That is my home." The city lord nodded and said, "Wanting to go back and have a look is actually a small matter. I have no reason to stop you. But recently, there has been a lot of negative news. Moreover, your identity is not ordinary, so I need to ask the higher-ups." The city lord naturally guessed why Brilliant left. It was because he did not want to be the second Shangguanyuer and did not want Zichen to be threatened because of him. All right. Brilliant left the city lord mansion. The Holy Moon clan is really stupid in this matter. After Brilliant left, the city lord said with a headache, the Holy Moon clan was not calm either. In the end, the Moon Lord was alarmed. The Moon Lord was furious and personally went to the Holy Thunder clan. Chapter 4157. The Holy Moon clan wasn't having a good time. Negative news about them was still fermenting, even though they were deliberately suppressing it. During the last trip to the Lost World, the Holy Moon clan had monitored the entire place and collected high tolls from all those who entered and exited. Naturally, some people felt uncomfortable. Now that the opportunity to hit them while they were down had finally come, they didn't want to miss it. Just like how they targeted Zichen before, many groundless rumors spread through various channels. The Holy Moon clan had a taste of the fearful power of gossip. Everyone was furious, but they couldn't stop these rumors. As for clarifying, no one believed it. After Zichen returned to his world, he continued to cultivate. He was actually very glad. If he hadn't cultivated with Hall Spirit Su for a period of time and made great progress in his physical body, it would have been difficult for him to be evenly matched with Bai Yu. Bai Yu returned with Zichen, but he didn't cultivate. He just wandered around the city every day, eating the city's delicacies and looking at the scenery. On this day, Zichen woke up from his cultivation. He had to wake up because a big shot had arrived. After learning who it was, Zichen was very surprised. He appeared in the meeting hall. The big shot had already arrived. Walking into the hall, Zichen immediately bowed to the slender figure. Zichen greets the Moon Master. The person who came was the Moon Master, the most powerful existence of the Holy Moon clan. Her status in the Holy Moon clan was equivalent to Lei Jinka's status in the Holy Thunder clan. However, what surprised Zichen was that the other party was actually a woman. The Moon Master turned around and gently waved her hand, indicating that Zichen didn't need to be so polite. She glanced at Zichen and found that Zichen was weak and tired. Zichen raised his head and glanced at the Moon Master, but he couldn't see her face clearly. "I didn't know that the Moon Master was coming. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Don't blame me." The Moon Master spoke in a unique voice. "I wonder if the Moon Master has come to the Tianwu world for any instructions?" Zichen asked. Inside the main hall, the fragrance of tea wafted in spirals. These were unique and expensive tea leaves that came from a small world. They were very rare, and Lena had bought them at a high price. They were specially prepared for distinguished guests. The Moon Master, who had introduced herself when she came, was of course an honored guest. Your combat power is not weak, but your ability to play dumb is also top-notch. The moon leader sat down. She gently held the teacup and looked at Ziqin. Ziqin cupped his fists and said, "Please speak clearly, Moon Master." The moon matriarch sized up the teacup in her hand and said, "I know that you were wronged last time. I can understand why you took the 2 moons away out of anger. Today, I will personally bring the 2 of them back." Ziqin said, "But they don't really want to go back, and compared to the Holy Moon clan, this place is more suitable for them." This was a direct rejection of a holy master. Obviously, Ziqin was quite bold. The moon matriarch did not blame him. She continued, "What you mean by suitable is only suitable for living, not suitable for survival. How are they going to cultivate? Would resources alone be enough? They also need the corresponding inheritance of the moon power. This is something you can't give them." Ziqin said, "I can't give it to them now, but I can look for it until I find it." The moon matriarch laughed. "It seems that you are quite stubborn. If it were any other time, this wouldn't be a problem, but from the looks of it, it seems that you don't have that much time." Ziqin looked up and asked, "What do you mean, Moon Master?" "The one who came back with you is called by you, right? He shouldn't be from the current saint spirit realm." The moon matriarch's words made Ziqin's expression change drastically. It seemed that no one else knew this secret except for him and Baiyu. Actually, it's not hard to guess. It's already a miracle that Ziqin appeared in the saint spirit realm. At least your origin is traceable. However, an existence comparable to Ziqin who appeared out of nowhere is naturally suspicious. The moon matriarch said, "The power that can resist the power of the ancient thunder and fire naturally comes from the ancient times." Ziqin stood there in silence. Baiyu may be the first ancient expert to awaken, but he definitely won't be the last. Have you thought about the scene of ancient experts walking everywhere many years later? The moon matriarch said, "You should know that it's an eternal truth that the peak of prosperity leads to a decline. We have no way of knowing how prosperous the ancient times were, but the destruction of the ancient times has already been recorded in history. Let me ask you, once the ancient experts awaken, will history repeat itself?" Ziqin was still silent, but his expression had begun to change. "My Holy Moon clan has a relic left behind from the ancient times. It's an absolute secret of the Moon clan. There's great danger inside, but it's also accompanied by great opportunities. I intend to let the 2 you go in to cultivate, so I've come to take them away today." Looking at the silent Ziqin, the moon matriarch said, "If you think you have the ability to find a relic that's equally suitable for them, then just pretend that I've never been here. If you agree to let them leave with me, then when I return to the Moon Clan, I'll announce that I've accepted them as in-name disciples. I believe that there won't be any trouble in the future. Actually, what happened last time was a misunderstanding. It wasn't you Butian's fault." After returning, Ziqin had also asked about this matter and guessed who the culprit was. The moon matriarch drank the tea that had already turned cold and stood up. "My time is very precious." Ziqin didn't hesitate and said directly, "This matter still depends on what the 2 of them want." "You should have said that earlier." The moon matriarch's figure disappeared into thin air, leaving only a faint fragrance in the hall. Ziqin turned around and looked out of the hall. He couldn't refuse the moon matriarch's words because, regardless of whether there would be a great crisis in the future, he hoped that the 2 of them would become stronger. Only when one was strong would there not be many schemes. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and tricks were useless. Ziqin walked out of the hall and saw the 2 women walking towards him. There was some guilt in the 2 women's eyes. Ziqin said, "I already know. You 2 can go with the moon matriarch. Cultivation in the future is very important, but it's more important to protect yourself well." The 2 women nodded. They had just reunited and had to part again. Because the moon matriarch was waiting, the 3 of them didn't even have the last meal and left just like that. Just as the Moon Matriarch brought the two women back to the Holy Moon Clan, Brilliant from the Holy Glory Clan also received a reply from the core city. She was asked to explore a secret place and go immediately. At the same time, in other forces, Zichen's friends and many holy spirits with excellent aptitudes also received the opportunity to cultivate in the core secret place. It seemed that all the forces could vaguely see the future through Bayu's identity. The Holy Moon Clan announced that the Moon Matriarch had accepted 2 nominal disciples, which also caused a considerable uproar. As for the culprit, Yu Buhui, although he didn't die, he was severely punished. Yu Butian was also punished. Because of this matter, the forces of their lineage were somewhat affected. All the major forces seemed to have quietened down overnight. The entire Holy Spirit realm seemed to have become peaceful. Chapter 4158. Qing Yi appeared from the sacred talisman palace. After greeting her, Fu Lao arranged for a sacred talisman master to bring her to Zichen. The teleportation arrays on both sides had already begun construction. This time, Qing Yi came here to check on the progress. Of course, she also had the intention to play. On this day, Zichen happened to come out from Lei Yu's place. The resources of the lost world were being effectively excavated. Grace and those core members had arranged everything well. Zichen, who was still the leader, could already get a considerable share. When he was about to walk to the teleportation array, Zichen saw Qing Yi. "Why are you here?" "I came to see how your progress is." Zichen expressed his gratitude to the sacred talisman master who led the way, and then personally brought Qing Yi to his own world. Along the way, no one came forward to question them. Zichen briefly informed her of the progress. Qing Yi listened absent-mindedly and finally said, "This time I should be staying here for a long time. Can you accompany me for a walk?" Zichen shook his head and said, "I'm afraid not. I still have to cultivate." "Cultivate?" Qing Yi tilted her head and sized up Zichen. "I still have a lot of room for improvement, so I've been cultivating during this period," Zichen said very seriously. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in his sea of consciousness. It was the hall spirit Su. "You don't have to stay in the world to cultivate. As long as you bring His Highness Zichen with you, you can cultivate anywhere." Zichen suddenly hesitated. Qing Yi asked, "What's wrong?" Zichen said, "I thought about it and decided to cultivate while walking. There shouldn't be any problems." Qing Yi snorted and said, "You can't bear to part with a beauty like me, right? You must be secretly happy. Others want this opportunity, but don't have it." Zichen followed him and said, "Can I decide on the route?" Qing Yi asked, "If you don't decide, should I decide?" Zichen was relieved. Next, he wanted to see those friends he hadn't seen in a long time. Zichen gave the resources he obtained to Zhou Lina. During this period of time, there were dragon chi, other crystals, and some decent quality soul weapons. The Tianwu world had already attracted a lot of forces, and its popularity had long surpassed what it used to be. Therefore, Zichen listened to Zhou Lina's suggestion and held a high-profile auction at this time to try and attract more popularity. Zhou Lina would handle the auction, so there was no need for Zichen, the leader, to step in. Right now, Zichen's fame in the Holy Thunder clan was already big enough. Zhou Lina could borrow Zichen's fame. What Zichen really wanted to do was to provide the corresponding resources. Originally, Zichen didn't want to go out. However, since Qing Yi requested and he had plans to see his friends, he needed to bring more resources with him. For example, the Holy Thunder clan's dragon chi and rare resources like soul life crystals. Therefore, on the second day, he went to the lightning shelter again. This time he took more resources. Although there were some twists and turns in the process, fortunately, no one deliberately made things difficult for him. After returning to the Tianwu continent, Zichen walked to his room and entered the Zichen Hall. The hall spirit, Su, sat there drinking tea. Even Zichen couldn't understand her current state. Was she a spirit? Or did she really exist? The hall spirit glanced at Zichen and said, "You're going to see your friends. Why don't you look happy at all? Is there something on your mind?" Zichen shook his head. The hall spirit immediately became interested. "Hurry up and tell me. Maybe I can enlighten you. In the past, you acted arbitrarily and rarely listened to the advice of others." Zichen sat in front of the hall spirit and asked, "Who do you think I am?" The hall spirit rolled her eyes. "Is your brain broken? Have you forgotten who you are?" Zichen said, "I know I'm Zichen. However, I'm not the Zichen in your eyes." The hall spirit saw Zichen's worry and said, "So what are you worried about?" Zichen sighed and said, "I'm worried that one day I'll become the Zichen in your eyes. At that time, I might no longer exist, and I won't know my friends." "How is that possible?" The hall spirit said, "No matter what, you'll always be Zichen." Zichen shook his head. "It's not the same. I can make the decision now. However, when the Zichen wakes up, my consciousness might be swallowed up. At that time, I'll disappear from the world. That Zichen will live with my memories, but that won't be me anymore." The hall spirit said, "You're not big, but you think a lot. I know you're good to me because I'm Zichen. At first, I was wondering why the Lei Di and Lei Jinka sacred clans would personally bring me back to the Lei clan and treat me so well. Now I know it's because of the Zichen. Zichen looked into the hall spirit's eyes and said, "I know you're all waiting for Zichen to return, just like the resurrected by you with complete memories." This time, the hall spirit didn't speak for a long time. She looked at Zichen and seemed to be seriously thinking about Zichen's words. Zichen sat there dejectedly. He didn't want to think about this question, but after seeing Baiyu and hearing the Moon Master's words, he couldn't help but think about it. Was the current him real or not? After a while, the hall spirit said, "Actually, I'm not too sure what you'll be like in the future. I've never thought about it, and the fallen Zichen didn't tell me anything. What I can do now is to make you stronger. Perhaps I can't make you stronger, but at least you'll be as strong as you were in the past. However, whether you're the current Zichen or the Zichen of the past, it's all the same to me." "Is it the same?" "Of course it's the same. In my eyes, you're Zichen. Moreover, you're a Zichen with a good personality. It's like a person's personality suddenly changed." Looking at the still confused Zichen, the hall spirit said, "You're you. Even if you awaken your memories in the future, you'll still be you. In other words, you'll become the you with distant memories. The reason why Lei Di helped you unconditionally should be the same as me. He only wants to see you grow. As for what kind of person you'll become in the future, it'll all depend on you." The hall spirit snapped her fingers and said, "If you think about those useless problems now, it'll only add to your troubles. What you should care about the most right now is how to make yourself stronger." The Moon Master's words were right. Baiyu might be the first to awaken, but he definitely won't be the last. A great upheaval may come. Before that, you must become stronger. Chapter 4159. In this battle, Zichen had been absent-minded at the beginning and had been badly abused. He could not afford to be distracted, so he could only fight with all his might. In the end, he was still defeated. This armored existence was unimaginably strong. No matter how much Zichen grew, he could not defeat him. A battle that was comparable to life and death made Zichen's heart completely calm down. If he had faced an enemy today, he would not have a tomorrow. So it was good to be alive. Why worry about the future? After the defeated Zichen refined a few strands of energy, he could already walk, but he was very weak. Just like when the Moon Master first saw him. His face was pale and his aura was weak. You can play with the beauties during the day and fight and recover at night. This way, you won't have to worry too much and will grow faster. Hall Spirit Sue teased. Just from this point alone, you're much stronger than Blockhead from back then. Zichen nodded. It seemed that this was the only way. As for the last sentence, he pretended not to hear it. After leaving the Zichen Hall and the room, Zichan went to find Jolina and asked for a portion of the Holy Lightning Demon Bone. The first place he wanted to go was the monks of the Buddhist region. After that, he would take a detour and visit all his friends one by one. With the resources, Zichen and Qing Yi set off the next day. Because they were not in a hurry, the two took a flying ship and traveled through the star domains. Once they reached a certain star domain, they would enter a city. The discussion about Zichen was still going on, and it was everywhere. Now, Zichen was the undisputed #1 person in the same realm, and he did not accept any rebuttals. There were even some rumors that said that even the 7-star Zichen was the #1 person below the Holy Venerate. However, this rumor was not firm, and there were many rebuttals. It seems that your fame is not only great in our world, but also here. Qing Yi said with a smile as the two of them walked out of a restaurant. She had been to many places, and there were discussions about Zichen everywhere. I was forced. Zichen said, helplessly. If he could survive, he wouldn't want to become so famous. Fortunately, there are quite a few people who knew his name, but there were only a few who truly knew him. Therefore, as the two of them walked, they did not cause any sort of disturbance. Qing Yi glanced at Zichen and said, You are very famous, but it's a pity that your cultivation level is too low. It doesn't match your fame. Zichen was currently a 7-star Holy Spirit. In fact, this level was not low. In some remote star regions, a 1-star Holy Spirit was a king-like existence. But compared to Qing Yi, Zichen's cultivation level was not enough to look at. What is your current realm? A 9-star Holy Spirit? Zichen asked. Sort of. Qing Yi said, In this world it is equivalent to your 9 stars, but in our world it is comparable to the Saint Venerable. Of course, this is because your world is big enough and there are no unified rules. After our people arrive, we can also try to strengthen our physical bodies. The two of them left the city and traversed thousands of mountains and rivers. Every planet was equivalent to a world, and there were countless living beings in each world. Only after Qing Yi experienced it did she understand how vast the Saint Spirit world was. In the eyes of everyone in the Saint Spirit world, the Holy Talisman realm was merely a training ground, equivalent to a planet. But this planet was everything in the eyes of everyone in the Holy Talisman realm. And in the Saint Spirit world, there were countless planets like this. Qing Yi sighed with admiration at how vast the world was. Zichen was also sighing with admiration. There were countless secrets and resources in this world. The Buddhist region was actually very far away from the Holy Thunder Clan. The reason why Zichen chose the Buddhist region as his first stop was because the transportation there was very convenient. There would often be teleportation arrays there. Although the Buddhist region was mysterious, that was only limited to the people of the Buddhist region. Actually, outside the Buddhist region, there were many people and it was extremely lively. Many major powers had camps here. Because the Buddhist region fought with the devil race all year round, there were many valuable resources here. Zichen and Qing Yi arrived outside the Buddhist region. This was the outer city of the Buddhist region, and if they wanted to enter the inner city, they would need to stay in the outer city for one more day. The inner city of the Buddhist region was only open for 24 hours a day, and there was a detailed record of people entering and leaving. It was said that this was to prevent devil race spies from sneaking in. As for where the devil race spies came from, no one knew. In short, the Buddhist region was the most cautious of all the major powers in the Saint Spirit world. Zichen and Qing Yi went to the nearest place to get their identity tokens. Of course, these tokens weren't given for free. They had to be purchased with Saint crystals. After getting their tokens, they had to wait until the city gates opened the next day before they could enter. The two of them didn't immediately return to the inn, but wandered around the city. Qing-yi was very curious about the things here and bought some small things, saying that she wanted to take them back. The one who paid was naturally Zichen. The small things here could protect one's safety. It was said that they were all brought out from the Buddhist city, and all of them were consecrated. It was rare to see them in other star fields, but in the Buddhist region there were many of them. On the way back to the inn, Qing-yi held these small things in her hands, feeling very happy. Zichen saw the smile on her face and didn't want to discourage her. Although these things weren't expensive, they weren't worth it. The so-called protection was just that evil energy couldn't enter one's body. But what was Qing-yi's realm? He saw through it, but didn't say it out loud. Qing-yi glanced at Zichen and said, "What's wrong? Do you have something to say?" Zichen said, "Very good. You have good taste." Qing-yi smiled proudly. The two of them walked side by side. The handsome Zichen and Qing-yi's beautiful appearance attracted some gazes. A monk walked towards them and stopped in front of them. He immediately handed over an ancient-looking pendant. "Amitabha, it's fate that we meet. I'll give the female benefactor a protective bodhisattva that can ensure the female benefactor's safety." The ancient pendant was a wooden carving of Arhat. It was handed to Qing-yi. Qing-yi had never seen such a scene before. She subconsciously took it and hurriedly said, "Thank you, thank you." The monk said, "This protective Arhat is extraordinary. It can protect the benefactor's safety. You can wear it without worry. Thank you, benefactor." Qing-yi thanked him again. She took the wooden carving in her hand and walked forward. Unexpectedly at this moment, the monk said, "Benefactor, please walk slowly. Can you do some good deeds for the renovation of the temple?" He opened his pocket, and there was a piece of sacred crystal inside. Qing-yi was slightly stunned. She didn't understand what he meant. Zichen saw this and said, "You want money?" "Benefactor, you're too serious. I just hope that the beautiful benefactor can do some good deeds. A little bit of goodwill is enough." The monk put his palms together and looked at Zichen. "I wish the two immortal lovers peace." Zichen was amused. "A monk also believes in immortals?" Qing-yi also smiled and said with satisfaction, "Pay up." After saying that, she walked forward. Obviously, she had no intention of returning the wooden carving. Zichen could only take out a piece of sacred crystal and hand it to the monk. The monk put his palms together and smiled at Zichen. "Thank you, benefactor." Chapter 4160. After walking for about 100 feet, the faint ancient aura on the wooden carving disappeared. The wooden carving that could protect one's safety became ordinary. Seeing this, Zichen couldn't help but say, "You don't even take the fraud seriously. You're really making a lot of money. Where are your professional ethics?" Qing-yi turned around and said, "Since you know it's a fraud, why don't you let me return it?" Zichen said, "You have to return it first. Look at how many of them there are here. If you leave, maybe others will come." Qing-yi glanced around casually. Of course, she didn't use her eyes. She saw the whole city. Similar monks, similar words, similar actions. Since this is the Buddhist city, why don't those people care? Qing-yi asked curiously. "I don't know." The two returned to the inn. After eating something, they decided to go to the Buddhist city the next day to find the monks. Back in a room, Zichen entered the Zichen Hall again. After a day of wandering, it was time to cultivate again. It was still in existence, wearing battle armor. Su the Hall Spirit had said that there were a total of 9 such existences. When Zichen could fight against 9 by himself, that would be when his cultivation of the physical body would come to an end. Zichen could only fight 1 against 1. The next morning, Zichen washed up and felt very tired. Qing-yi was used to it. The two checked out and followed the others to the Buddhist city. There were many people going in, and there was a long line. Zi-chan was lucky enough to see the monk from yesterday in the crowd. The monk also saw Zi-chin and bowed to Zi-chin from afar. Zi-chin put his palms together and bowed back. Are they going to the Buddhist city too? Are they going to buy goods? Qing-yi was in a good mood to enter the Buddhist city. Zi-chen's gaze shifted away from the monks. There were still some monks in his line of sight. Perhaps. In fact, these people were not real monks. At least, they were not from the Buddhist tribe. People there didn't need to line up, and there were other ways to go in. If Zi-chen had introduced himself, he could have entered as well. However, it was his first time here, and he wasn't in a rush, so he didn't want to trouble everyone. When they entered, there was a preliminary inspection. All they had to do was hold the tablet in their hands properly. There were soldier monks from the Buddhist race keeping watch. They wore battle armor and swept their gazes over everyone. The two entered the Buddhist city and truly experienced the many cultures of Buddhism. There were various Buddhist temples in the Buddhist city, and inside these temples, there were many Buddhas worshipping one after another. During this period of time, there were also shops and countless pedestrians. This place was even more bustling than the outside world. True Buddhist monks could be seen everywhere. They would not give out wooden carvings every time they saw someone. Zi-chen paid special attention to the monks who entered this place. They had completely restrained themselves and were no longer expanding their business. They spread out and did not head in the same direction. It was unknown whether it was because they had different supply channels. Buddhist incense wafted in the air and Buddhist light shone everywhere. This was what a Buddhist city should look like. Are we going to find your friend directly? Qing-yi stood on the street and looked curiously at the open halls one after another. Zi-chen smiled and said, "There's no rush. Let's walk around here first." Qing-yi naturally had no objections. In fact, she was already impatient. She quickly walked into a Buddhist hall. There were 3 different statues of Buddhas enshrined in the hall. The atmosphere of the hall was solemn, and there were rows of small statues of Buddhas around. They were equally extraordinary. Zi-chan followed behind Qing-yi and also looked at these lifelike Buddhas. They seemed to be cast with real bodies. They were in a myriad of forms. The surroundings were filled with pure Buddhist power. After entering this place, people would have the urge to worship. Amazing! It can affect people's souls without them noticing. Qing-yi clicked her tongue and said, "It seems that the good side of human nature is awakened here. It actually has the feeling of bemoaning the state of the universe and pitying the fate of mankind." Zi-chen also had this feeling. In the past, Zi-chen even learned the 6-syllable Sanskrit mantra, but he completely abandoned it in the end. He did not like this feeling, especially the feeling of his soul being affected. After walking out of the hall, Qing-yi went to the second hall and then the third. The Buddhas here all looked the same, but Qing-yi looked at them with great interest and was very serious. In this way, in this day, she had visited almost 1/10 of the halls. If it were not for the night, she would have walked around. It was already so late, and it did not seem appropriate to look for a monk. Zi-chen planned to look for one the next morning. Now, the 2 of them needed to find a place to stay. Along the way, Qing-yi seemed to be deep in thought. After finding an inn, according to Zi-chen's original plan, he who had recovered for a day needed to cultivate. However, Qing-yi had no intention of leaving, so Zi-chen could only sit there. Qing-yi said, "This Buddhist city is really extraordinary." Zi-chen nodded in agreement. There is no war at the moment. Once there is a war, those Buddhas will naturally awaken. Whether they are real bodies or not, they will have a strong combat power. This was what Zi-chen had sensed early on. The surging Buddhist power made those Buddhas look like ancient Buddhas who had passed away and could be resurrected at any time. Zi-chen could imagine the scene once the Buddhist city encountered a great crisis. There would definitely be Buddhas appearing one after another, and the Buddhist light would illuminate the entire city, eliminating evil. Our people are good at soul power. If we can master their method, I believe the city we build will be more magnificent than this Buddhist city, Qing-yi said. This is the secret of the Buddhist clan. You'd better not think about it. Be careful that the two of us can't get out. Zi Chen pointed outside the door. Moreover, you didn't create a barrier when you spoke. Maybe the Buddhas have already heard your words. Qing-yi complained. Why didn't you remind me earlier? Suddenly, there was a commotion outside the inn. Something seemed to have happened. In just a moment, the entire street was in chaos, and in the end, the entire city was affected. There was a big change in the Buddhist city. Many monk soldiers patrolled the streets with vigilant expressions, cleaning the streets until there was no one left. There is something interesting to watch. Let's go and take a look. Qing-yi sensed the abnormality outside. You go, I still need to cultivate. Zi Chen rejected the other party's suggestion. At this moment, the door was suddenly forced open, but there was no one outside. The open door was closed again, and then a hidden figure appeared. It was a monk. Coincidentally, it was the one Zi Chen met twice. Zi Chen said, What's wrong? Are you here to do business again? The monk turned around. After seeing Zi Chen and Qing-yi, he seemed a little surprised. Then he said with a smile, I am very grateful for your help. Zi Chen asked, How can I help? No, nothing. The monk put his palms together and bowed to the two. Then his figure disappeared and hid again. Chapter 4161. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Some soldier monks appeared outside. The sound was urgent. Come in. Zi Chen's voice sounded. The door opened and 5 soldiers entered. The others went to another room that had been opened. After the 5 of them came in, the first thing they did was to put their palms together and apologize to Zi Chen. Amit Ba, there are thieves who have disturbed the Buddha city and came to disturb us. Please forgive us. Zi Chen nodded and smiled. It's okay. I wonder if the 2 of you have seen any outsiders coming in? The leading soldier monk asked. No. Zi Chen shook his head. Sorry. The leading soldier monk put his palms together again. Just as Zi Chen guessed that the other party was about to leave, he suddenly saw the man take out a shining Buddhist bead. It was much bigger than an ordinary Buddhist bead. It shone brightly and had pure Buddhist power. Zi Chen quickly realized that it was not a Buddhist bead, but a relic. The soldier monk apologized again and then activated the rare relic. The relic slowly flew up and released a real light in the air. It was like a net of light that covered the surroundings. The 5 carefully observed the changes in the net of light. After 3 breaths, the relic retracted its light and fell back into the soldier monk's hands. Sorry for disturbing you. The 5 bowed to Zi Chen again and then left the room. They closed the door for Zi Chen and went to the next room. Qing-yi looked at Zi Chen in confusion. Logically, Zi Chen had friends in this place. He should have helped these monks. Why was he willing to help a stranger? After the 5 soldier monks left, the monk from before appeared. He immediately cupped his fists and thanked the 2 of them. Zi Chen said, No need to thank me. Take out the thing you stole. What? The monk was stunned. Zi Chen smiled and said, I really want to know what they've lost with such a big fuss. The monk's expression changed. Are you trying to take advantage of us? Zi Chen explained, I'm just taking a look. If it's something unimportant, you can take it. But if it's something important, I'll have to trouble you to keep it. I'll return it to the Buddha later. As for you, you can leave safely. You? A trace of mockery appeared in the eyes of the monks. Zi Chen said, Do you want to try? You're courting death. Cold light flashed in the eyes of the monks, and they immediately charged at Zi Chen. The aura around him surged in an instant, and he became a 6-star Holy Spirit. However, this level of cultivation was clearly insufficient in front of Zi Chen. Just as the monks were about to touch the corner of Zichen's clothes, Zichen grabbed their heads. If he exerted force with his 5 fingers, his opponent's head would explode in an instant. There was a look of shock in the eyes of the monks. Footsteps immediately came from outside the door. The soldier monks who were still next door had returned. There was a look of surprise in Zichen's eyes. Earlier, he had already used his power to cover the surroundings. He did not expect that the moment the monk attacked, he would break the barrier first. Was he not afraid of being discovered? This time, the soldier monks did not knock on the door. Instead, they rushed in and saw the scene before them. "Master, save me. It's him. He ordered me to do this. Now he wants to kill me." The monk who came from nowhere immediately cried for help when he saw the 5 soldier monks. "Benefactor, what do you mean?" The soldier monk leader looked at Zichen impolitely. Qing Yi stood aside and watched the show. She thought it was quite fun. Rays of light flashed as more soldier monks came. In a short while, the place was completely surrounded. Zichen, who was still holding the monk's head, turned around and said, "If I say that he's lying and that we don't know each other, would you believe me?" The soldier monk leader hesitated. The monk shouted, "He's lying. If he doesn't know me, why did he cover for me? I was in this room before, and he was the one who helped me hide from your detection. So you've been waiting for me here." Zichen chuckled. The soldier monk leader said, "In that case, the 3 of you will come with me. Let's go." Qing Yi was the first to nod. The soldier monk leader did not understand, so he took the 3 of them and left. Zichen let go of the monk. He was not afraid that the monk would run away. At this moment, there were soldier monks all around, and there were powerful existences hiding in the dark. In this Buddhist city, there was no city lord, only the abbot. He was in the largest Buddhist hall. There were 108 ancient Buddhas enshrined here. Each of them looked like an ancient Buddha that had passed away. Zichen and the other 2 were brought here. The abbot looked at them and said, "I wonder if the 3 benefactors can return the thing of the Buddhist clan?" The monk from before pointed at Zichen and said, "It's him. He ordered us to do this. Now he wants to kill me. The thing is on him. After I gave it to him, he turned hostile." Amitabha. Good. The abbot put his palms together and looked at Zichen. "Benefactor, what do you have to say?" Zichen smiled. "If I say that he made this up, would you believe me?" The abbot said yes or no. Qing Yi asked, "Your words are very interesting. Do you believe it or not?" The abbot said, "Of course I believe you, but this matter is very important. It may affect the life and death of the Buddhist clan, so I don't dare to say anything." Zichen nodded and said, "I see. I'm here to find a friend. This is my identity card. You can take a look and know whether to believe me or not." Zichen took out his identity card. It was the one he bought with St. Crystals. When Zichen handed it out, it was upside down, so no one saw the name on it. The abbot took it with both hands and carefully turned it to the other side. He saw the name on it. His expression couldn't help but change, and the way he looked at Zichen also changed. "I believe that in this world, no one would impersonate this name." Zichen said, "I have nothing to do recently, so I came to see an old friend." The abbot nodded and handed the identity card back to Zichen with both hands. It was still upside down. The thief monk suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Zichen glanced at him and smiled faintly, as if to say, "Look, you picked the wrong person." "Men, take him away and interrogate him carefully," the abbot said. Immediately, the monk soldiers took the thief away. The thief kept looking at Zichen with hatred in his eyes. In the blink of an eye, only Zichen and the other 2 were left in the hall. The abbot said, "Benefactor, please wait for a moment. We will immediately send a message to the inner area." "Thank you." The 2 of them stayed in the hall, and the abbot sat with them. After looking at all the Buddha statues, Qing Yi was a little bored, so she asked, What did you lose? Why did you mobilize so many people? This was obviously a secret, but after looking at Zichen, the abbot still said, "A bone-grinding relic? Bone-grinding relic? What is that?" Zichen was stunned. Only Buddhist cultivators had relics. He had never heard of demonic bone relics. The abbot sighed and said, "It's a long story." Chapter 4162. Evil Good and Evil walked in. His face was oily, and he had a big belly and big ears. He grinned and didn't look like a monk, but more like a cunning merchant. "You damn Baldy." Zichen stepped forward with a smile and gave the monk a hug. The abbot stood at the side and said, "Amitba." After the hug, Evil Good and Evil looked at Ching-yi and said, "Is this the new girl I met? Not bad. Your luck with women is only a little worse than Lord Zheng's. If it weren't for Lord Zheng's devotion to Buddhism and ignoring the mortal world, you would have taken advantage of me. Who knows how many girls in the world would fall in love with Lord Zheng?" Ching-yi felt like she was looking at a weirdo. "Don't talk nonsense. She's my friend, Ching-yi. We're partners." Zichen introduced. "Ching-yi, this is Evil Good and Evil Good." Evil Good and Evil sighed and said, "Let's go, I'll take you to Lord Zheng's territory." Then he bowed to the abbot and said goodbye. His etiquette was good. After the three left, a soldier monk in charge of security came to the main hall and said in a low voice, "We've asked around. The item is with that person." "Oh, are you sure?" There was surprise in the abbot's eyes. The soldier monk said, "We've tried all kinds of methods, and the person who came said so." The abbot was puzzled. How is that possible? They knew who Zichen was. He was the strongest person in the same realm, and he was also a friend of Evil Good and Evil. Last time, the Buddhist domain spoke up for Zichen, saying that they believed in Zichen's character. How could this incident be related to Zichen? However, their people couldn't be lying. What was going on? "I understand. You may leave." After thinking about it, the abbot decided to take a look himself. There are many good things in the Buddhist domain, but most of them aren't suitable for you. Otherwise, I could send some to you. On the way to the monk's residence, Evil Good monk patted Zichen's shoulder and said with a smile, "Thank you for all these years." Zichen had instructed Joe Lena to send some cultivation resources to everyone every once in a while, and this had never stopped for many years. "At least you still have some conscience." Zichen smiled. "Fortunately, you came early. If you came later, I would have had to go into seclusion for a long time." The Good and Evil monk said, "We have heard about yours matter." They were afraid that I would be oversensitive, so they told me early on that I would be going to a Buddhist mystic ground to cultivate. Furthermore, it was passed down from ancient times, so there should be ancient Buddhist power inside. It is said that it is not weaker than your ancient lightning flame power. How do you think Lord Zheng will refuse a power that is even stronger than the power of thunder and fire? After talking about his recent situation, Tyrant did not ask about Zichen's recent situation, because there was no need to ask. All kinds of news were everywhere. In the end, Evil Good monk sighed and said, "Actually, the people of the Buddhist domain are quite miserable. They are constantly fighting the demons, and no one knows the true casualties. During this time, they have to be on guard against the erosion of demonic power and problems in the rear." Zichen was puzzled and asked, "Is there a passage to the demon domain here?" Tyrant shook his head and said, "No. If there really is a passage, there is no way to guard it. It is said that it is a relatively weak area in space. Demons often mistakenly enter this place, and there are many of them. And in this world, there are always hidden demons. They are no different from other holy spirits, but they always want to open a gap here and let the demons in." Tyrant said, "I heard that the city is in chaos again today. This kind of thing happens often, so there is no need to make a fuss." While the two of them were conversing, Ching-yi was looking around curiously. This was the core of the Buddhist domain, and ordinary people could not enter. Along the way, there were often soldier monks, but when they saw the three of them, they immediately stopped and bowed. Of course, this was not to say that they were polite, but it was out of respect for Evil Good Monk. Evil Good Monk brought the two of them to see the various Buddhist halls. These halls were an eye-opener for Ching-yi. There were many Buddhas inside, and their auras were more powerful. These Buddhas were one of the foundations of the Buddhist domain. Once a great danger appeared, these Buddhas would appear. Ching-yi was very curious. She asked Tyrant how these Buddhas were made, and Tyrant gave a simple explanation. These were all existences with great power. They were made by the Buddhist domain's unique cloning technique, as well as Buddhist power and Buddhist formation. Each Buddhist hall was an independent Buddhist formation, and when the many Buddhist halls were linked together, they formed a lotus formation with boundless killing power. These things were unique to the Buddhist domain. Tyrant could talk about it, but he would not teach them. Ching-yi was a little regretful. It is late. You two should rest first. We will talk about it tomorrow. After bringing the two of them to their residence and chatting with Ziqin for a while, Tyrant said goodbye and left. Actually, Tyrant planned to chat with Ziqin through the night. They had not seen each other for a long time, and they had endless things to talk about. However, he received news that something big had happened in the city, and he needed to discuss it with him. When Tyrant arrived at the core Buddhist hall, almost all the people in charge were there, and they looked solemn. Tyrant's heart skipped a beat. Did something big really happen? The only one standing there was the outer city's abbot. When he saw Tyrant enter, he put his palms together and bowed. Tyrant returned the bow and asked, "What happened?" The abbot said with shame, "The demonic bone, Sarira, is lost." What? Tyrant's expression changed. How could such an important thing be lost? Have you found it? The abbot said, "We have caught the thief, but he told us that the bone-grinding Sarira is with Ziqin." Bullshit, bullshit. Tyrant said angrily, "Ziqin just came to the city to find me today. How could it be him? Do you all believe it?" This was the first time the outer city's abbot saw this side of Tyrant. He had heard that Tyrant would curse without caring about his image, but he had never seen it before. The others were silent and did not express their opinions. Tyrant took in everyone's expressions, and his expression changed again. He said, "So you all also believe that this was done by Ziqin?" "Good and evil, you misunderstood." Sitting at the end of the table, Monk Xingjue said, "It has been confirmed that the thing is with Ziqin, but no one said that Ziqin did it. The demon race has endless means, and I believe that even Ziqin does not know that he has the bone-grinding Sarira." Chapter 4163. The monk showed extreme confidence. This came from his confidence in Ziqin. When the others heard this, they all thought about it in silence. But when they thought about it carefully, it seemed to make sense. If even Ziqin couldn't protect the bone-grinding relic, who below the Holy Venerable could protect it? If it's really on Ziqin, we don't need to worry. But now even Ziqin himself doesn't know how they put it on him. Obviously, he doesn't know how they took it away. The abbot said. What he said was not unreasonable. The monk said, "I know what I'm doing. All right, let's disperse." After that, the monk left. The others looked at each other, especially the abbot, who didn't know what to do. Those who were qualified to sit here all closed their eyes, as if they were asleep. In the end, only Shengju said, "We'll deal with this." The abbot was relieved. No matter what happened next, he was not responsible. That night, the monk didn't look for Ziqin again. Instead, he waited until the next day. "What did you do last night?" Seeing that Ziqin was so weak when he opened the door, the monk's expression changed. Then he quietly looked around. There was no one else. He had arranged 2 rooms for him last night. "Get lost." Ziqin said angrily, "I'm cultivating." The monk gave him a thumbs up and praised. You're already the first person, but you're still so hardworking. I admire you. Qingyi should not have woken up yet. The monk entered Zi Chen's room. After sitting down, he said, You're in trouble. Zi Chen was slightly startled. Then he said, What happened yesterday? The monk nodded. Our people found out that the missing bone grinding relic is on you. Zi Chen asked, You think so too? The monk nodded again. According to the information we found out, the other party shouldn't be lying. Zi Chen said, Could it be a misunderstanding? It can't be so coincidental that we were targeted as soon as we arrived here, right? The monk said, It's possible, so you'd better carefully sense your own situation and see if there's anything unusual. From the beginning to the end, Tyrant had never said that he believed that Zi Chen was innocent because there was no need to say it. Zi Chen did not explain because there was no need to. Zi Chen carefully sensed his body's condition over and over again, but he didn't discover anything. He opened his eyes and said, Could it be that we were misled and that they had already changed hands? The monk said, It's not impossible. Those guys are very cunning. I'll get someone to investigate carefully. Zi Chen asked, What's the deal with the bone-grinding relics? These two don't seem to be related at all, right? Tyrant sighed and said, Fighting the devil race is risky because the devil race's soul is very unique and very powerful. Tyrant suddenly looked at Zi Chen and asked, Among the three races, which race do you think has the strongest soul? Zi Chen thought for a moment and said, It should be about the same, right? Tyrant said again, There's always a stronger one. Just make a guess. Zi Chen said, Then it's the god race. The god race's soul is stronger. I think the devil race's body should be stronger relatively. Zi Chen had dealt with the devil race before and had killed a real devil race member, so he gave the answer. Tyrant said, This is what most people know, but it's wrong. The devil race's body is indeed very strong, but their devil soul is even stronger. The spirit race, the devil race, and the god race have their own strengths. The spirit race is good at spiritual power, the god race has a strong body, and the devil race's devil soul is unparalleled. Speaking of this, he continued the previous topic. The devil race's devil soul is very strong, so in fighting it will often affect the soul of the Buddha race and arouse the inner devil. Some powerful figures are not afraid of the inner devil and can even break through to another level by cutting the inner devil. However, some can't do it and are swallowed by the inner devil. The reason why the bone-grinding Sarara appears is that although the powerful figures of the Buddha race who have succeeded in cultivation did not kill the inner devil, they suppressed it. However, in the process of growth, if the inner devil is not eliminated, it will slowly erode the body. In the end, the Sarira that is condensed will contain the aura of the devil race. At the same time, it is also called the devil bone Sarira. The bone-grinding Sarira not only has the magical power of a normal Sarira, but also contains the aura of the devil chi. If someone with a mind to get it, they can open a passage to the devil race. Tyrant finally said, There are at least 10 powerful figures who can condense the bone-grinding Sarira in the Buddha prison. Zi Chen's expression changed. He said, In that case, why don't you destroy the devil bone Sarira? Tyrant said helplessly, This is the strength of the devil soul. It can't be destroyed at all. It can only be properly stored, because every time it is broken, it can be repaired. Zi Chen felt very sorry for the encounter of those powerful figures. At present, he couldn't even find the bone-grinding Sarira on his body. Naturally, he couldn't help others. After a while, Qingyi came. She also helped to search, but she also couldn't find it. Then don't worry about it. Let's go. Today, I'll take you to see some of the resources in the Buddhist realm. Walking in the Buddhist realm, there was surging Buddhist power everywhere. Tyrant took the two to see a few mineral veins. During this time, Zi Chen took out the resources he brought. The Holy Thunder Devil Bone had always been in short supply in the Buddhist realm. It was very popular. Not long after Zichen took out these resources, a powerful figure personally came to thank him. He even made an exception and let the two of them go to the battlefield to take a look. These holy thunder devil bones were given to the Buddhist realm by Zichen. After all, Tyrant didn't do business. As for the other resources, they were given to Tyrant himself. Among them was the energy that Zichen was refining as he cultivated. It could strengthen his body. The battlefield in the Buddhist realm was a secret. It was a dangerous place, but it was also a place of opportunity. The resources obtained after killing demons could be exchanged for cultivation resources by the monks. Moreover, they could also earn merits. I've been here a total of 3 times. 2 were lightly injured and 1 was heavily injured. After entering, the higher your cultivation, the higher the chance of dying. Tyrant explained as they walked. Also, there are some demons and insects that somehow got here. They're very difficult to deal with. The spatial entrance to the battlefield was a spatial tunnel. Outside the tunnel were 8 holy spirits guarding it. At the same time, there were 18 Buddha statues lined up on both sides. There were also some powerful figures in the dark. It could be said that this tunnel alone was heavily guarded. Other monks entered and exited at the entrance. They wore battle armor and carried weapons. They entered with confidence, but almost all of them came out with injuries. The 4 of them walked towards the battlefield. Clearly, they wanted to go in and take a look. At this moment, there was some commotion in front of them. A monk covered in blood staggered out. Black veins protruded from his forehead like tiny black snakes. The others noticed the abnormality and cried out in alarm. Some retreated to avoid it, while others went forward to investigate the situation. Retreat quickly. That's a demon leech. Don't get close to him. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.